Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. It is a Wednesday, May 28th. And folks, today is Nvidia Day. It is the Super Bowl for all of us nerds. Most of your family, most of your friends have zero idea what's happening today. They likely don't care. They maybe have heard Nvidia here or there. They have no idea. It's a $3.2 trillion company, and a lot of us have a lot of money on the line today when they report results. They don't probably know who Jensen Huang is, but for all of us, it's an exciting day. And quite frankly, although Nvidia is not what I would say it was last year, aka carrying the market on its entire shoulders, it still is a pretty important earnings. And so today at 3:30, I'll be live with Jose and Tanner. Jose is going to call into the show in about an hour and give his previews and thoughts on Nvidia. We'll talk more about it today, but this is going to be a big one. This will be a big one. So we got a lot to talk about with Nvidia. We got some new Tesla headlines this morning. Pre-markets are relatively green. Yesterday, we had a pretty green day, 2% up on the S&P 500. I mean, again, a lot of the bull cases based on what we talked about yesterday, whether it's bond yields coming down from Japan, whether it's Kevin Hassett saying that countries are likely not going to have a 10% tariff and that the India trade deal is near, whether it's Trump saying, hey, it looks like we're making good progress on the EU trade deal. I mean, all of these things put together is resulting in the bullish sentiment that we're seeing right now. And Nvidia can really give us some momentum if they give us a good earnings. And later today, we will find out what Nvidia is able to say. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Today's a really good morning for me because my grandparents came from India after the past year. And I'll tell you, you know, a stock going up and making a lot of money, it is nothing in comparison to getting a hug from your grandma that you haven't seen in about 2 years as she comes back to the States. So last time they were in the country was 2018. So it's been a while. I did see them back in India October of 2024, but it's been a while. And so honestly, this is one of the best mornings I've ever had, quite frankly, because, you know, when your grandma gives you a hug, it's one of those like you're not leaving for like 2 minutes type of a hug, right? So, you know, that actually matters more than anything that we talk about when it comes to the stock market. But got a lot of Nvidia. If Nvidia can go up 10% after hours today, that plus the hug would make it a really good earnings day for Nvidia. Really good earnings day. So let's hope that Nvidia can do a good job. All right. Good morning, everybody. Let's get into it. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Josh says, shout out from Taiwan. Josh, thanks for being here. We had Timothy fly all the way from Taiwan to Boston for the meetup last weekend. So that was super awesome. Love Taiwan. Hopefully we'll be able to see Taiwan in 2026. A lot of you guys have been asking when you're coming to Singapore. I think 2026 it's happening because my uncle lives there. So I have to go visit him anyway. And on my YouTube analytics, Singapore is the third largest country after Canada and the US for people that watch the channel. So I think definitely it'll be an opportune spot to do a meetup, and hopefully we'll get that done in 2026. Yes, the Pacers won, of course. Knicks, they go so far always. And, you know, it's like, this is what it's like being a Knicks fan. And again, I'm not that emotionally attached to the Knicks anymore, but like, this is what it is to be a Knicks fan. You know, we cannot find a way to get the job done, but regardless, it is what it is. All right, let's get started. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Let's start off with Elon Musk. We're gonna start off with Tesla. Actually, we should start off. Let's do this real quick on Palantir because this isn't really much to analyze until we get the announcement. But I saw this morning and I didn't really know what to make of it. So there's this guy on Twitter called Plut. You guys might know him. He like does a lot of philanthropy and stuff. Apparently his bio is that he's the U.S. Director of Federal Housing. I forgot Trump made him the U.S. Director of Federal Housing back in January. So this guy is like an entrepreneur, philanthropist type of guy, gives away a lot of money, marketing, all this stuff. This is what he tweeted today. Thank you for the birthday wishes. I'm 37. We will be working with the CEO and co-founder of Palantir, Alex Karp, and we're going to be holding a press conference at Fannie Mae this morning to discuss something big on mortgage fraud. Okay. So Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir, the company we know, is apparently doing a press conference with the U.S. Director of Federal Housing at Fannie Mae this morning to talk about mortgage fraud. Does that mean that they're does that mean they're working with Palantir? Does that mean they're contracting Palantir? I think Palantir has worked with the Federal Housing Administration before, but does this mean there's like an extension of the partnership? I have no idea what this is going to look like, but it does seem pretty exciting. And again, Trump has been tweeting for the past couple of weeks now about taking Fannie and Freddie public, obviously to just kind of juice up the public markets in terms of, how long they've been privatized. That stock is up 10x since then, at least the common shares. Preferred shares are also doing well. So this is really interesting. I don't know when this announcement is going to happen. Maybe it's at 11 a.m. Maybe it's at 10 a.m. I'm sure we'll get some updates. But if this is a full-on press conference with Karp and the, again, director of federal housing at the FHFA, then this could be something really cool for Palantir. So I'll keep an eye on this. We'll see how that plays out. And then we'll go from there. Government will privatize Fannie and Freddie. Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ideas that people have in terms of what's going to play out. And so we will see what happens, and I will keep you guys updated throughout the entire day. Okay, let's talk about Tesla. So Elon did an interview yesterday. And the interview, he said something pretty important. We've been talking about it for the past couple of days now, ever since we've been seeing his tweets. And his tweets have been pretty critical about what he attempted to do with Doge. Here's what Elon said yesterday in a new interview. And maybe it's why Tesla's up in the pre-markets.
So, I was like disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along, I mean, like, everything he's done on Doge gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion.
So, I mean, look, Elon, this is the first time he has publicly kind of shown his issues with what Trump is doing. Again, Elon has disagreed with Trump before in the past, but this was one of the more explicit ways of his of showing his disagreement. And he wasn't like rude or anything like that. He wasn't like, critiquing, saying Trump's the worst person. He was just saying, hey, that whole big, beautiful bill that was supposed to cut spending, that's the reason, they even set up Doge in the first place. Tesla right here, up about 1% of the pre-market's 365. He's saying, you know what? Like, I can't do anything. The bill can either be big or beautiful, but it cannot be both. And so why does this matter for Tesla shareholders? Well, Tesla got to 368 yesterday after hours. It's at 365. The stock was at 335 last week. I mean, it seems like Elon's back. It's like, when Michael Jordan came back from baseball and he in his press release when he came back to the NBA, I think in 1993 was "I'm back." It was 2 words. I feel like Elon could just tweet that and everyone would know what's happening. It's like, he's back, bro. He's back. And, he's explicitly acknowledged over the past couple of days that Doge probably Doge took up a little bit too much time when it came to politics, and he kind of wants to get away from that. And now we're starting to recognize what the ramifications of that could be, aka ramp up in FSD, ramp up in Robotaxi, ramp up in Optimus. All those really hard to be able to effectively get out into the world, and you kind of need someone who's sleeping at the factory floor to do it. But maybe Elon has the chance to do this. There was another interview he did right before the Starship flight test, and here's a quote from what he said. I think I probably did spend a bit too much time on politics. It's less than people would think because the media is going to overrepresent any political stuff because political bones of contention get a lot of traction in the media. It's not like I left the companies. It was just relative time allocation that probably was a little too high on the government side, and I've reduced that significantly in recent weeks. That's it. That's it. That's all you needed. That's all you needed to get this stock to get a little bit more momentum. 365 on Tessie. I mean, does it head to 400? I don't know. Is it expensive at 365? You bet your ass it's expensive. It'll be expensive at 400. But at this point, I think the street is looking so forward to the future of what Robotaxi can look like, and then Optimus being the cherry on top. And we're kind of in a bullish market, I would say, given all the macro stuff we talked about, which means it can be elevated for a long time. And for Tesla to go back to 200, I mean, the earnings would have to be so abysmal. And last quarter, the earnings were so abysmal, and still you didn't get that type of reaction. So I think there's people that are just saying, all right, if Elon's back, we're going to take a risk and we're going to buy Tesla at $1 trillion because we think it can go to 10 trillion one day. And as a result, that's creating the inflows on Tesla right now. So very exciting stuff for Tesla. That's why the stock is up. I don't think we have any other headlines this morning on Tesla. We had a couple things happen over the past couple of days, which we talked about, which China registrations, Europe sales declining, UBS reiterating their sell, but none of that stuff really mattered. The only thing that actually mattered is Elon admitting, hey, I can't really solve government spending. I'm going to focus on GDP growth. And as a result, I'm leaving Doge. And really, he's not leaving Doge, but like not really being that much more involved in Doge and getting more into Tesla. So that's good for Elon, and that's obviously good for Tesla shareholders as well. All right, let's talk about some earnings in the morning, then we'll get to some other headlines as well. So A&F, here's another reason why we're not in a bear market. Abercrombie and Fitch does not go up 27% in a bear market. The fact that Abercrombie and Fitch, which was a really good stock in 2023, had a little bit of a dicey 2024, and now it's up 30% of the pre-markets, is up this much. A, it means they beat on the top and the bottom, which I'll show you guys in a second, the results. But also, they reaffirmed their guidance. You know who else reaffirmed their guidance? Dick's. So Dick's right here, 337 versus 321, they beat by 5%, and then 317 versus 316 on revenue, they came in line. Revenue's up 5% year over year, EPS is up 2% year over year. And then you got Abercrombie, beat by 17% on EPS, 159 versus 136. And then you got 3%, 1097 versus 106. They beat revenues by 7%. Their EPS is down 26% year over year. Their revenues up 7% year over year, but still, based on their operating margins, number one, and number two, their guidance, stock's up 27%. Also, this thing got sold off pretty aggressively from like the 140. So any positive news would get it to go higher. And now it's higher, which is pretty incredible. So very nice to see on Abercrombie. Was Chris Camillo in this? I don't know. Was it, you guys saying in the chat he was in this? I did not know. I actually don't know if Camillo was in this. If he is, then this is why Camillo is Camillo. I mean, if he is, then shout out to him, dude. I mean, 30% up in the pre-markets off of a relatively, like, it was a good earnings, but it wasn't like, oh my God, they smashed earnings. Like, they beat on the top and the bottom. It was nice. I guess the stock was just so oversold that any beat was going to be respected by the market. And it also shows Abercrombie & Fitch kind of sells more high-end luxury clothing, not like a Louis Vuitton or anything, but like, you know, the average person doesn't really need to go to Abercrombie & Fitch and pay like $80 for a pair of jeans. But the fact that they're doing it and the fact that they're not taking away their guidance when it comes to demand means that the tariffs, I'm sure a lot of their clothes come from like Bangladesh and Vietnam, et cetera, are not really affecting their guidance, which is a good thing, which is a very, very good thing. So that's what we got on Abercrombie & Fitch. And then Dick's right here is also up about 3%. They acquired up 5.7%. They acquired Foot Locker last week. I mean, again, dude, these retail companies to me are even more important than some of the big tech names because big tech can weather the storm of a crappy earnings, right? Or of a tariff oriented type of volatility, but retailers can't. Like they buy low, sell high. And if they can't sell higher than what they bought for because of the tariffs, they're going to have bad earnings. And now, granted, Q2 is going to be the real tariff earnings that we have to look at. But still, the fact that Dick's and Abercrombie are not taking away their guidance, to me, is very bullish. Very, very bullish to see that as well. You guys saying Camillo wasn't Abercrombie? Okay, well, there you go. I mean, he's had a good year, dude. Oklo, Abercrombie. Obviously, he got Nvidia right before he like bought calls on Nvidia right before they announced the UAE stuff. So again, that social arbitrage style that has worked for him so well. You know, it's been doing well this year. And again, this is kind of a stock picker's market. The S&P 500 is flat year to date. I mean, it's up slightly. So realistically, for you to outperform the index, which is the goal of all of us, right? Our benchmark is the S&P. Even as retail investors, our goal is to outperform this thing. You had to have to consolidate, pick different stocks to be able to, you know, get some level of outperformance. And so it's a stock picker's market currently right now. Yeah, Hood. He's obviously big in Hood as well. So that's been good for him. One thing on Tesla I forgot to mention, Kimball Musk is selling $30 million of Tesla. He filed that yesterday. And then some other director, I'm forgetting their name, is selling like $162 million worth of Tesla. So that is something that broke after hours. So you got two directors that are taking profits here. I mean, I don't know if it's for taxes. I would imagine it's not, based on how I looked at the document. It didn't look like it was a scheduled sale for tax purposes. It looked like it was just an outright sale. I understand why. I mean, Tesla's trading at a pretty aggressive multiple, even though the earnings are not backing it up. So like, yes, they're going to take some profits right here, but the stock doesn't care. The stock does not care. There are plenty of people willing to buy those shares and continue to realistically buy into this story, because that's what you're buying into right now. And they believe that this story is going to be bigger and bigger than what we think it's going to be. Yeah, Kathy sold 27,000 shares, but Kathy sold for like rebalancing purposes because the stock probably got too high in the portfolio, given she has to keep it at less than 10%. She also bought a ton of AMD and Nvidia. I think she bought 100,000 shares of each yesterday. So she bought AMD, she bought Nvidia, and then she sold some of her Tesla. Okay, cool. So that's what we got on Tesla, and that's what we got on some of the earnings. Let's talk about the lab of rockets, folks. This thing, just an incredible day. Yesterday, Rocket Lab not only got included into the Russell 1000, but they bought Geost, which is a payload provider to the Department of Defense for U.S. national security space missions and its next generation satellite constellations. I believe they paid about $225 million. Put in the chat if you own some Rocket Lab. If you own this name, I have 1,900 shares at an average of $22.25. So I didn't buy the 15-16 dip, but I did buy that earnings dip when it dropped to like $21.50. And I'm loving it. I mean, Rocket Lab right here, again, this is a little bit more of an aggressive name in terms of its multiple. It's not profitable yet, but there's a lot of potential, and I think that's what people are buying into, and the company's definitely executing against that potential. So here's what Stifel said. They raised the price targets to 34. After the close, Rocket Lab announced an agreement to acquire Geost, an electro-optical and infrared payload development manufacturing company. The transaction is expected to close sometime in early second half of this year and has already been approved by both companies and board of directors. We are encouraged by this latest announced deal and its strategic rationale while Rocket Lab is acquiring key technologies to enter into the satellite payload segment, creating a new category and positioning the company as a disruptor for the national security in space. Okay, a lot of you guys have Rocket Lab, as I'm seeing right here in the chat. I know June owns it. June's been on the Rocket Lab train for a while. Obviously, our boy Matt Money, which is probably the only reason, quite frankly, that I own this name. That's why having friends who know about stocks is a good idea. Like they can tell you. Now, he tried to tell me about it $4, but I was a bit too heavily concentrated in Robin at the time. So, but still, the potential. I don't expect Rocket Lab to stay at these levels. It would not surprise me if it comes back down to the low 20s. Obviously, I think there's a lot of momentum right now. That's okay with me. I kind of don't care. I'm bought into the thesis. I'm ready to hold this for a long time. But the fact that it's getting this momentum, especially in a more bullish market, and they're making steps like acquisitions that they haven't really done for a while, and you've got Neutron coming up. I mean, it does seem like the stars are aligning, no pun intended, for Mr. Rocket Lab, or maybe the pun wasn't intended because the pun is always intended from my side. But you got Rocket Lab right here at $29.70. Got to $30 yesterday after hours as well, which is nice. See, also that Golden Dome stuff. Yeah, I mean, the fact that they acquired a company that is supplying to the Department of Defense, it kind of makes it obvious that there is a chance they could play a role in the Golden Dome. Palantir, Rocket Lab, SpaceX, Anduril, none of these companies were mentioned. Only L3Harris and Raytheon and Lockheed were mentioned specifically by Trump. So maybe some of these secondary players. Remember, this is an $800 billion project. There's a lot of money to go around. I would imagine the Rocket Labs and Palantirs of the world can play a role. And if that's the case, then that would obviously be very good for those companies. Palantir right here, 123.71 currently in the pre-markets. Shout out to Brett, Jimmy Neutron. Dude, if what's his name? If Sir Peter Beck ever listens to anything I say or a tweet, or he sees me on a stream or something, I just wish he would name Neutron Jimmy. Like, put Jimmy in the first name. Jimmy Neutron got a blast. Like, that would be the most epic. I would buy another 1,000 shares if he does that. That would be the most epic thing ever. He's probably not going to do that, but still. Jimmy Neutron, bro. That would be literally the coolest thing ever for Rocket Lab. So shout out to the Rocket Lab community. Great stuff. And let's see if the momentum can continue. I don't expect it to. Like, I expect it to consolidate, maybe go down another 5-10% and just chill out in that 25 range. But if it has the momentum, and if people are ready to bet on space, and you see all these other companies getting a bid, like the ASTSs of the world, et cetera, ASTS right here up about 1.5%, then I don't think Rocket Lab has to come back down to the low 20s, especially because it stayed there for about 4 months. And so maybe if it's breaking out, that breakout can actually stay broken out for a while. GameStop. So GameStop made an announcement today. Their stock is up 2.4%. Now I know why GameStop is up 15% over the past week. GameStop has officially bought Bitcoin. So $512 million worth of Bitcoin. They bought 4,710 Bitcoin. I hate this so much, not because I don't like that GameStop's buying Bitcoin. I'm annoyed at this for a lot of reasons. Number one, the company has more than $4 billion of cash on the balance sheet, and they've had more than $4 billion of cash on the balance sheet for about a year and a half. The fact that now they've decided to use it when Bitcoin is way higher than it was before just shows me Ryan Cohen doesn't really understand much about Bitcoin. I mean, there was a picture that he had with Michael Saylor a month ago. Like, he really needed a 1-hour meeting with Michael Saylor to decide to buy Bitcoin. It's kind of ridiculous. And maybe that's just Michael Saylor's seductive personality about getting you to understand Bitcoin. But goodness gracious, dude, you have almost $5 billion in cash for 2 years, and you don't do anything with it other than more at-the-money offerings to dilute your shareholders. And then when Bitcoin gets to 110,000, you decide to buy it. Like, to me, it's kind of a joke, dude. Like, this company is an absolute joke. They barely do an earnings call. They don't answer any questions. And so I've never been one to chase this. However, when it comes to the overall ecosystem of Bitcoin, we are seeing corporate treasuries be the catalyst. Whether it's a Semler Scientific, a MetaPlanet, a MicroStrategy, a Marathon, a GameStop, all of these companies are deciding, in addition with sovereign funds and the BlackRocks of the world, to get in on the story. And that might be transforming their entire company. Now, again, look, he's buying it at 110 or whatever. He definitely bought it above 100,000. I mean, for the stock to get a premium to its net asset value, like all these companies do, Bitcoin needs to go up at least, right? At least like 20, 30%. Like, there needs to be some momentous move, or people just need to buy into GameStop as their proxy. But the question is, why would you buy into GameStop as the proxy over MicroStrategy? especially when GameStop only has $500 million worth of Bitcoin. So these are the questions I think a lot of the bulls are going to start asking themselves in terms of why they think GameStop is still a meaningful vehicle to be able to get exposure to anything. Also, people didn't invest in GameStop because of Bitcoin. They invested in it because they believed in Ryan Cohen's kind of turnaround story to transform the company, because it still is a company. You can still buy video games at GameStop. They're just, the revenue's down 30% year over year. And they bought it to stick it to the hedge funds. And so that thesis is obviously transformed over the years, but I don't know how susceptible the Bitcoin element to that thesis will be to the OG shareholders. Maybe some new people will want to buy it. But then the question will be, why GameStop over other companies? And so I think that's going to be the important thing to kind of look out to over the coming weeks. You guys are saying Joby is running. Is this one running? Joby, 14%. Did they have earnings today? Or did they announce something? Let's see. Joby and Archer, again, these are kind of the main players. Joby does have some eVTOLs in the air versus Archer, if I'm not wrong. Joby and Toyota announced they've closed a $250 million funding round. Joby will sell, or no, is this a funding round, or they're making $250 million? Joby will sell aircrafts to Toyota for their Toyota air taxi operations in Japan. Toyota gets priority for future aircraft purchases. Toyota will stand up an MRO in Japan. Toyota plans to operate their own in-house fleet. Toyota plans further cement Joby's preferred manufacturing partner and part supplier. Okay. It looks like a $250 million deal. Yeah, it's not a funding round. It looks like Toyota's buying. Oh, no, sorry. Toyota's investing. Yeah, correct. Okay, so Toyota's putting in $250 million into Joby. That's why the stock's up 13.7% right here. And they're setting up an agreement for what this funding round will look, or what this investment will look like, which includes the following highlights here right now. $250 million investment out of the $500 million promised. All right, there you go. Shout out to Joby. Is Archer moving on this as all? Archer is up about 2.75%. Yeah, Archer kind of recovered from that short report last week. But Joby right here getting some love this morning. First of 2 rounds. Okay, cool. All right, so Tom definitely knows about his Joby. So there you go. Joby, congrats, Tom. It looks like you're deep in the stock for anyone who's in this one. Up a nice 14% on the day. GameStop has $6.3 billion in cash, dude. See, this is my point. They've had so much cash. And by the way, I wrote up a pretty long Twitter post back in May when Bitcoin was 40,000 or 45,000 of 2024. And I think it got like 500,000 views. And I said, like, Ryan Cohen should buy Bitcoin. Like, this is the time to buy. Like, they're not doing anything with the company. They might as well become a Bitcoin treasury. And they waited till 110,000, which is fine because, if their goal is to just go long Bitcoin like Sailor for the next 20 years, then I guess it is what it is. But they are definitely entering at a time where, they had the cash to enter in a lot cheaper. So that's what we got on Bitcoin and GameStop. Okay, let me show you guys the Anthropic CEO and what he said today. So this was really interesting. This is actually what Steve has been saying on the show. He's been a little bit of a doomer when it comes to this stuff every time we get into the conversation. I texted him this tweet this morning. He called me immediately. He was like, I told you. Here's what Anthropic CEO said. This is the first AI CEO or CEO of a big AI company to actually talk about this publicly, because the other ones just really haven't done it. He said, AI could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs and spike unemployment to 10 to 20% in the next 1 to 5 years. He then said AI companies and governments need to stop, quote unquote, sugarcoating what's coming. It sounds crazy and people just don't believe it. You could tell Steve got a kick out of this. So look, Sam Altman has not said this. Elon has kind of said this in a way. Sundar obviously has not said this. A lot of the AI CEOs haven't really talked about this because it goes against their best interest. Because if they say, hey, AI is going to take away 20% of jobs, especially for white collar workers, and it could be 30 to 40% for blue collar workers, governments are going to regulate, right? No president wants to hear they're going to lose jobs because of this technology. They want more jobs, more investment. So it's one of those things that as investors, I mean, I still think we're all trying to figure out and kind of navigate how the economy is going to play out. The one solution we have is to own equity in the companies that are going to be creating the technology to replace those jobs. Now, that's not a solution because if people don't have jobs, you don't have an economy, right? So it doesn't matter if you own Tesla stock and Tesla solving FSD. Like if people don't have jobs to be able to pay $8 to go to the local grocery store in a robotaxi, then like FSD is not going to make any money, right? Or robotaxis won't make money. So you got to have the economy function, even if you own equity in the biggest names. But in the short term, one of the ways to hedge against like losing a job or just like AI fundamentally disrupting the economy, I think it's two things. A, become more AI native, right? So just get more AI skills, learn. I mean, this is why UAE is giving ChatGPT Plus to all their citizens for free, because they want them to grow up with AI to become more intuitive and adaptive with it. And then B, invest in the companies that are going to be building the picks and shovels that manifest itself in this new world that we're living in, aka the Nvidias, the Palantirs, the Teslas, the Googles, the Amazons of the world, right? The Metas, all that stuff. Basically big tech. So Nvidia right here, 136.35. I do think we should not take this lightly. What Anthropic CEO is saying, this will be an existential crisis for the world to figure out how we're going to navigate if AI really does take away jobs. And remember, Microsoft, they fired 3% of employees. Why did they fire them? They said it was middle management. More likely, it was because they had a ton of AI that was able to do all the coding that they needed, and they didn't need some junior level engineer that can't code better than AI. And so it's one of those things I definitely think we can't ignore necessarily. Tempest is tanking. Where's Tempest right now? They are down 3%. I don't know. I don't think they had earnings today. They've got earnings coming up. Again, this is a Nancy stock, but that stock, yeah, it is down 3%. Yeah, there's no headlines right now. Likely just a move happening in the pre-markets. Robinhood. So Vlad was on the Bitcoin stage yesterday. He all but confirmed they are launching a platform for tokenization of U.S. assets. I mean, again, the way he said it was just like, if I was going to announce something, I can't really do it here. So you get the gist that they are definitely going after tokenization. They are definitely going after a broader market where people can trade U.S. assets across the world, even if you're not in the United States, which from a crypto perspective, the possibilities are endless. You could buy SpaceX on Robinhood if they tokenize it. You could buy commercial real estate if you tokenize it. I mean, there's so many different ways to manifest this stuff. And I think that's why the stock is getting a premium. Robinhood stock is up 70% year to date. Like, it has just been an incredible run that we've seen. 67% year to date. Yesterday, when it was above 67, it was up 71% year to date. And I think the street is just recognizing, hey, we're in a bullish market. We're seeing options and equities go crazy in terms of the amount of retail participation. Crypto's doing well, even if it's not doing as well as it did last quarter for Robinhood. It's still doing pretty damn good with Bitcoin above 100,000. You've got a company that's growing. You got a CEO that's putting himself on every single podcast in the world to market and understand and share his vision. And then you have a narrative around wealth transfer and so many other different narratives that are baked into the stock, which allows it to get that premium. Now, if the market tanks and Robinhood stops growing, obviously the stock's going to get cut in half. And we saw that in April. But the nature of being in a volatile name is that once you get through some of the downside volatility, which it was 2022 for Robinhood, and then it was obviously April with the tariff volatility, if things start to get bullish, the most momentous names tend to be the names that are tapped into that bullish ecosystem, which Robinhood is a poster child for. And so very, very nice to see Robinhood at these levels, 66.49. I bought 100 shares yesterday at 65.20. I've just like, I don't know, dude. My strategy, again, I've told you guys, is just sell calls against it. I'm not that, I want more shares. Like I want this to be a really big position over the next decade. And if it tanks, I'll just keep writing more calls in DCA. So that's kind of how I'm thinking of it right now. But 70 might be around the corner if we get S&P inclusion. We got to see if that happens on June 6th. Hopefully next Friday as well. Oh, yeah, Legend. They also announced Legend is in the UK. So they announced that they're bringing Legend to the UK. So this thing that we're looking at right here, they're bringing this to the United Kingdom today. So if you're in the UK, let me know how it feels. If you get to work around it a little bit and play with it, maybe trade on it. But that is another update that they're bringing to the UK. All right, let's listen to Walter Isaacson. He was on CNBC this morning talking about Elon Musk and wartime Elon being back. Let's give him a little bit of airtime and see what he has to say. And then we'll keep going from there.
Also, Jobs, Benjamin Franklin, we can go on. I don't know if we want to do the politics part of this first, given some of the comments that, that we saw overnight.
Yeah, but none of that was surprising. You could see that. We talked about this before, that he was going to get frustrated because he doesn't own the federal government. And he's particularly frustrated at this big, beautiful bill that does nothing to try to codify the Doge cuts.
Were you so surprised, though, that he was so public about it, given the relationship he has with the president?
There was no, the only thing that would ever surprise me about Elon Musk is if he bit his tongue.
Yeah. In terms of, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we just intimated, we had a guest intimating someone's going to be a trillionaire. And he said, yeah, well, I think we know who it is. And I think we do know who it is.
Well, I think that him focusing back on his companies again, he needed to.
Not that far away.
No. And what happens is he has said something interesting, which is, all right, they're not going to cut federal spending.
Right.
I was delusional to think that the interests in Washington would allow that to happen. And he says things that are very weird and forward-looking, but then you have to think about them, which is the only way to solve this is to increase productivity by tenfold, by an order of magnitude. And I'll be able to do that with Optimus the robot, full self-driving cars, Neuralink. And if I focus on that, I can solve the problem by increasing productivity.
And we never cut spending. We just increase everything.
Well, I mean, he just feels Washington will never cut spending.
Right. So it's gross.
So the stock has moved on the back of this idea that he is now back sleeping on the factory floor, that he's now, and he's one of these people, and you've written about this, when he gets his back up against a wall or he feels that that's when he sort of pushes ahead even more.
He's like Andrew Jackson. He's made for the storm, he said. When it's calm, things are bad. And he loves sleeping under his desk at the Tesla factory or in the Starship, the new Starship.
But do you consider his back against the wall this time? Because in truth, I mean, we've talked about it, even though, you could argue that the stock wasn't performing the way it was before, it's still the best-selling car in
He can gin up anxiety and gin up the fact that we have to have a maniacal intensity, and that's what he's doing now.
In his recent interview, he said, someone said, what are you talking about? What was fake? And he goes, that I'm a Nazi and give, how Hitler said. That became, I mean, he has suffered the slings and arrows of a media backlash. Now I'm going to sound like Trump, the likes of which no one has ever seen.
And by the way, he's being sued right now by attorneys general from the 12 states.
I think his back's up against it. Was late last night when the Raptor engines of the Starship second stage didn't perform perfectly, and he's sitting there obsessing about that rather than, I mean, by the way, who did he give this interview to where he's attacking this big, beautiful bill? He gives it to CBS News.
It's funny. Yeah, I know. That's it.
So look, the Starship flight didn't exactly succeed yesterday, which wasn't the best thing. Elon was visibly upset, but like, that's kind of what you want him to be. You want him to be upset, right? You want him to be like annoyed at it not working, because that's what a founder, entrepreneur gets excited about, or gets mad about, when things don't work. And then when their back's against the wall, they figure out a way to make it work. So it does really look like Elon is back. Yes, it was a test, but still Elon was upset. It didn't need to work, but Elon was obviously still mad that it didn't exactly work. And I think the stock is getting a premium realistically based on the fact that people are seeing how upset he is. And Walter Isaacson makes a good point. The fact that he did an interview with CBS, I mean, Elon's not really a fan of the mainstream media. He was kind of sending a message implicitly, like that he's annoyed at this big, beautiful bill. That probably pissed him off even more than he's explaining right now, because he really went through a lot of shit to be able to get Doge out into the world. And the fact that it was kind of decimated from this big, beautiful bill that didn't even try to meaningfully have any type of a spending cut, I think he just realized there's no way he's going to solve this with Doge. And it probably told him the last 5 months was a waste of time if he was just going to get destroyed by Congress when they approve something like this. And he goes to CBS, he goes to mainstream media to kind of voice his frustrations. And I don't know what that means for the Trump relationship. Trump's probably not loving that Elon's kind of saying this stuff, but I think Elon kind of doesn't care anymore. And Elon knows that he'll figure out the self-driving regulations and all the favors he needs in whatever way. But I don't think he wants to appease Trump anymore. I think he wants to just get back to being a CEO. And if that's the case, then that's definitely not the worst thing for Tesla stock. We got an update right here from Bloomberg. This broke 3 minutes ago. The European Union and United States trade representatives have agreed to speak every other day. We'll talk again tomorrow. Wow. There you go. So yesterday, Trump said that they're making good progress. Looks like Bloomberg's reporting that they're talking every other day. They only have a month to be able to figure out a pretty complex trade deal, so they should be talking every other day. And that's good. That's good momentum in the context of this bull market. Again, I asked this question yesterday, and I'm genuinely curious to hear what is the prevailing bear case narrative. You've got trade deals on the way. You've got trade or tariff rates that are going to come down, which should help inflation. We're seeing a ton of disinflation across a ton of different sectors. Chris posted a great chart today about, he's been talking about shelter like crazy. We are starting to really see rents and vacancies go up more dramatically. And that is also creating some momentum on the downside inflation side. And then we have earnings growth that was way better than expected in Q1. Q2 is going to be the telltale to see how companies are dealing with tariffs. But if Abercrombie and Fitch and Dick's are any indicator, they're dealing with them in a pretty easy way by reaffirming their guidance, which means Q2 is not going to hopefully be that bad. And then from what Mike Wilson said yesterday at Morgan Stanley, $15 billion of fresh capital, $5 billion from retail, $5 billion from CTAs, $5 billion from corporate strategics are coming into the market every single day. Every dip is getting bought up. IBKR, one of the presidents at IBKR came on CNBC yesterday, and he said that their clients on their platform, again, IBKR, one of the biggest brokerages on the planet, bought the dip aggressively in April. He was like, all our clients did was buy. That's like there was like almost zero selling. It was just buy, buy, buy. Now they've calmed down with their buying, but they're still buying pretty aggressively, and they're buying momentum-driven names like a Core, even a Palantir that he mentioned specifically. But he did say that the buying has calmed down, which is what should happen, right? When the dip happens aggressively, you should be buying the dip, and when the dip doesn't become a dip anymore, you should be kind of chilling out and slowing the pace of deploying capital. And now you let the corporates deploy their capital because they're not, they missed the dip in April that retail didn't. So from that perspective, it's like, okay, retail's buying, bond yields are coming down, the 10-year down again today, which is nice to see. You got the 30-year down, Japanese bond yields are down. You've got all this momentum when it comes to trade deals. You've got AI that's not slowing down. Nvidia's got to give us one of those big daddy quarters for us to really secure the semiconductor, Micron, Marvells, Broadcoms of the world in terms of their stock price movements, the AMDs, but also for Nvidia to kind of put their foot in the ground and say, hey, no. Like, you guys are crazy thinking that DeepSeek or tariffs was going to ruin us. Like, we are mother freaking Nvidia. If that happens today, plus all the macro things I talked about, what exactly is that bear case that everyone should be so scared about? I'm not saying there's not bearish things in the economy. There's plenty of bearish things in the economy. For example, here's a stat this morning. The median U.S. mortgage jumped 5% year over year in May to a record $2,800 a month. Like, that's not good that people have to pay that much for their mortgages, but we need rate cuts to be able to solve this. And based on some of the macro stuff we talked about, it looks like rate cuts have a better shot to happen towards the end of the year, which will at least somewhat resolve this. So this is like a bearish thing about the economy, but this is not a cataclysmic, okay, stock market's going to be 2022 or 2008 type of a moment based on, mortgages going up. And if that's the case, I don't know, dude. It doesn't mean you have to deploy aggressively, but it definitely means you don't have to sell and be afraid that another April event's going to happen, especially because we just went through that downturn. So from that perspective, I think there's a really good argument for a bear case. Triple V, thank you again for the $99 super chat. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for being here. Dude, every day you guys try to guess who this guy is, and it's not Chris Camillo. I can promise you, it is not Mr. Chris Camillo. It's not Elon either. I know a lot of you guys are really thinking it's Elon after he reposted my video. You're like, oh, Elon's in the stream every day, and he's what? No, dude, Elon's trying to literally go to the moon and then go to Mars. So I don't think Elon has time for this. By the way, speaking of Elon, dude, Neuralink raised $900 million at or was it $600 million at a $9 billion valuation. So these guys are not slowing down either. I mean, you could argue Neuralink's going to be the most important company when it comes to, or AI will have the most important impact when it comes to every single company on the planet. I think it could be Neuralink, simply because the fact that you could put a chip in someone's brain and use artificial intelligence to allow them to see again, hear again, move their arms, like, come on. But that to me could have the biggest impact on humanity over the next century. And so now Elon's managing Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, Boring Company, XAI, which also owns X. He's a little busy. He's probably not sending super chats in the stream every day, but he's doing his thing. He is doing his thing. So shout out to you, Triple B. Thanks for being here. Hopefully we get to meet later in August. Maybe you guys will get to see him as well if we have that Miami meetup. It is not Skrelly. Skrelly's, I don't know if he can afford $99 super chats because his short on quantum names have been pretty aggressive. And that's not me saying that. That's him obsessively tweeting about quantum names being a fraud. Like, I think at this point he's trying to use his influence to get people to like not short it anymore, or to continue to short it. But the shorts are not working on the IONQs and the quantum names of the world. IONQ down about 5% right now in the pre-markets, but up like 300% from when he started shorting. So yeah, it's not Mr. it's not Mr. Skrelly. VVV is your mom. It is not my mom. I can guarantee that. It's not Anthony Pompliano. He's busy pumping a SPAC or whatever. VVV is a good person. He's a good person. One thing I'll tell you about Triple V, he came to this country. He's an immigrant. He came to this country with nothing. Literally nothing. And he turned nothing into literally billions. And it's just like, it's the American dream. It is absolutely the American dream. So he's being very generous, giving back every day. And he loves this community, which is why he's here. But shout out to him. He's definitely an inspiration to me as well. He's not the Grab CEO, dude. You guys come up with some crazy... He's not Chamath. Yeah, it's Christina. It's Christina. There you go. It's Christina in the chat. Jason, thank you, brother. You do not have to send this stuff, but I appreciate it. Thank you for the $200 super chat. VVV equals Gergiven. It's not Gergiven, although he is a good friend of mine on Twitter, but it is not him. Jason, thank you for the $200, bro. You did not have to do that. Because you did that, I'm going to have to buy Palantir. I'm buying it right now because you sent that $200. So here we go. I think you'll see it on Legend. It'll pop up. All right, here we go. 123.88. We're going to buy one share. There you go. You see it? There it goes. All right. Another share of Palantir added to the collection. It's a collection, bro. It's just a collection. You know, it's a collection of shares. Keep forever. Give it to my kids one day. Tell them how hard their dad worked to freaking buy these shares back in 2022, 2023. You know? And then I'm going to tell them they're not allowed to sell it either. They got to give it to their kids. So that's going to be the way we generationally transfer these Palantir shares. All right. We got 4 minutes left until the market opens. Again, we got some good momentum. Robinhood, Tesla, Nvidia, Palantir, all are green. Nvidia earnings. I mean, let's talk about that. First of all, let's do the first pumper dump of the day on Nvidia. I'll be live at 3:30 with Jose. He's going to call in about 40 minutes, and we'll get his perspectives on what he thinks is going to happen with Nvidia. But pump or dump, what do you guys think? I'll add a third option. I really do think it could be flat. If it's not flat, I think it's going to pump. I don't think it's going to dump unless the guidance margins are off. So again, JP Morgan said yesterday, we think that the street is not estimating a 7 billion guidance miss in Q2 due to China revenues. And we also think gross margins will be 58% versus 71%. If that is the case, and Nvidia really craps the bet on those numbers for this quarter, even if that quarter does not turn into multiple quarters, then it's an easy buy the dip. And I would not be that upset about that, quite frankly. But if they just come in line with expectations, I think they'll probably still be relatively flat or down 2%. They would have to massively beat guidance expectations for this thing to gap up to like 150, 160. I'm just not expecting that. I would be very happy, but I'm not expecting it. So my answer is pump, but realistically, my answer is flat. I don't think we're going to dump. Last couple of quarters, it has been a bit of a flat to dump, 5 to 8% down. Over the coming days, not at once. It's like flat during the day, and then the next couple mornings, it goes down. But ultimately, today after the bell, we're going to really see what numbers they put up. 52% of you say pump. Wow, it's 50-50. Well, actually, 34% say flat, 14% say dump. So the majority of you say pump, but decent chunk also feel that it could be flat as well. Look, the Saudis and the UAE, that's definitely a good narrative for Nvidia, but I kind of think that's priced in, dude. And the reason it's priced in is because they lost their China revenue. And so they're getting all this new revenue from the Saudis, and that kind of balances it out. So if they kept the China stuff, I think that would be an added level of like, oh my God, they're getting so much more revenue. But in this case, I think it's kind of balancing some of the China stuff they lost, which is good. Maybe that like makes them not miss on the guidance expectations. But I don't know if that accelerates the demand outlook, unless it does. And Jensen will say in the guidance what it looks like. But I think the consensus is 44 billion. And, you know, NVIDIA's going to have to put up some real numbers to be able to get to that 44 billion. Rocket Lab, $30. We got 45 minutes until the market opens. Rocket Lab right here at $30 in the pre-markets. Look, if Rocket Lab wants to break out above 30, be my guest. I mean, it was at this level back in February, then it tanked all the way to 15, stayed there for a bit, kind of broke out to 21, stayed there for about a month, and now maybe it's really making a move. So if it does, then looks like we maybe can start to normalize the 30s or at least the high 20s when it comes to Rocket Lab as well. Did I say 45 minutes? Okay, I didn't mean to say 45 minutes. I meant to say 45 seconds, but whatever. You guys know me at this point. We make some pronunciation mistakes. It's 45 years. That would have been even funnier. All right, here we go. It is 9:30 a.m. Wednesday, May 28th. Thank you, everybody, for being here. The stock market on the Super Bowl day, which is NVIDIA earnings, is now open. All right, here we go. Wake your ass up. Let's get into it. Rocket Lab opens up 3% on the day, 29.70. Not bad for Mr. Rocket Lab. Robinhood opens down 25.93, just below 66. Tesla opens down just below 363. 362.84 was at 365 in the pre-markets. Nvidia 135.91. That's down from 136, but basically at that same level. And then Palantir right here 124.95. I'm already up $2 on my Palantir share. So shout out to you, Mr. Jason Huang. There you go. We're up $3 on Palantir. Not bad. Appreciate it, brother. Thank you for being here. PayPal right here, 71.59. That's green. SoFi 13.39. That's green. Googs 173. That continues to stay in the $170 range. Amazon right here is at 206. That is also green on the day. Meta 647. That's up about 1%. Meta was at almost 620 last week. So Meta getting a nice little recovery. Grab back above $5. That's up 1%. MicroStrategy 367. That is down. Again, Saylor came out yesterday. He said he really doesn't care about short-term gamblers of options. And he basically told them to kick rocks yesterday. He's building this company for the next 40 years, not for the next 4 months. And so MicroStrategy kind of tanking based on these at-the-money offerings. Saylor really could not care less. He just wants to continue buying more Bitcoin. And he made that pretty evident yesterday as well. Reddit right here, 105. That's up about 1%. GameStop, they bought 4,000 Bitcoin this morning. They are down, red by 0.5%. They are red by 0.5%. Rocket Lab, 29.92, just below that $30 range. Disney's at 112. Elf also has earnings today. Also, Salesforce has earnings today. This is an important one, 276. They acquired Informatica for $8 billion yesterday. So I guess we'll see if that has any implications on the earnings. They really have to show that Agentforce is going to do a thing, like do anything that's, meaningful. And this quarter probably is the quarter where the street wants to see like real momentum from Agentforce. And so we'll see what plays out there as we get into it throughout the rest of the day. Remember, the big thing that we talked about this morning is the director of the Federal Housing Administration said he's doing a joint press conference with Palantir CEO Alex Karp to talk about mortgage fraud. So this is going to be interesting. This is going to be really interesting. I don't know when this is happening, but did not expect this morning. Looks like Karp's going to be speaking with the guy who's running the Housing Administration. Fannie and Freddie right here up about 10% on the day. Yep, they're up right now, 12% currently right now. And looks like Palantir might be helping the government when it comes to mortgage fraud. So there might be something really interesting there that's going on with Palantir. That also could be explaining why Palantir is up about 1% here right now. Tessie goes red, 361, taking a breather. Robinhood back to 66.14. That's green. Nvidia, 135.47. That's slightly flat on the day. Google right here, 173. TLT is down a little bit. I guess the 10 years slightly up right now. That's why TLT is down. Nubank's below $12. Raytheon slightly green. Red Cat is down about 1%. IWM small caps are basically flat. Walmart, that's up a little bit. Uber, that is also flat. S&P 500, 591. Again, that was up 2% yesterday, recovered from the Friday lows. And we are now green. Coinbase is down 3%. I guess that's because Bitcoin's down. Not sure really what Coinbase is down. Apple is up about 1%. So Apple's a big green. And Coinbase is down. Where is Rocket Lab? Are we holding 30? Wow, Rocket Lab. Look at that, baby. $30.48. Dude, 7% on the day. I think it's really moving off that acquisition news because it was already up yesterday based on the Russell 1000 stuff. And then once they announced the acquisition, Street got really excited. 30.50 right here on Mr. Rocket Lab, which is very, very, very nice to see. Okay, so we got Dell right here at 114, Bitcoin at 108.7, Tesla 361, again, Google 173. Google is holding the 170s, which is very nice. HIMS is down 1%. HIMS is basically flat. Kind of consolidating in the 50s. I don't hate this for HIMS, and I don't think any HIMS holders should hate this either. It's at a hell of a run. I know you have a lot of the HIMS Twitter bulls that are tweeting every day that it's going to go to 100. But, if it stays at 55, I don't think that's the worst thing either. Tempest, I don't know why it's down. Wow. They didn't have earnings today, if I'm not wrong. So I don't know why this is getting dumped right here. Again, this is a Pelosi stock. Healthcare AI is kind of what they do. They got a short report. Spruce Point Capital just put out a short report. And they're alleging history of management's involvement in controversial tech firms, questioning AI capabilities, revenue quality, and accounting practices, warning of 50 to 60% downside risk to shares. There you go. That is the short report by Spruce Point Capital. They're questioning, again, quality of revenues, quality of accounting, concerns about what firms they work with. and they're warning 50 to 60% downside on shares. This is where you either have to be a bull or a bear, right? If you're a bull on Tempest, you call BS on this report. And if you're a bear, you probably, or you're skeptical, you sell right here. This is why knowing a stock is so important. Because if I was in Tempest and this report came out and I didn't really know about Tempest, it would make it hard to sleep at night. But when we got our first short report on good old Palantir by Mr. Bear Cave, when Palantir was $15 and, his short report had to do with, well, anything but the company. I mean, it had to do with SPACs. It had to do with like Alex Karp's hair and stuff. Like, it's just like, it was really easy to ignore it. But it's because we knew the company. If you didn't know the company, it would be kind of scary when you see a short report. So, I mean, this is when conviction really does play a role in terms of evaluating a thesis. Nvidia right here, 135.50 again goes green. ANF, that one was up 30%. The options must be going crazy on that. Wow, still up 29%. Shout out to Rushil. He said he made 500% on an ANF option this morning. Congrats, brother. If the underlying moves 30%, especially if it's a short-dated option, then yeah, the options can move, especially on the call side, very, very aggressively. So there you go. That's what we got on ANF. That is up 30% right now. Is Webull pumping? Webull is up 7%. All right. So Webull's getting some love. UNH, are we getting a green candle? UNH is up 1.2%. That's up a little bit on the day. Nebius and then CoreWeave. Nebius is up a little bit, and then CoreWeave is down 5%, which is not surprising given the momentum CoreWeave's had. AppLovin, which could get into the S&P 500 next week, so that's one to keep an eye on. That one is almost back to 400, dude. This thing was like 540. This thing was 540 back in February. So this one also took a big hit, but the earnings were good, and the street can't really deny strong earnings. Palantir right here at 125, Hood at 66.24, and then Tessie 361 going a little bit red. Currently right now, where is AMD? AMD 113.93. That's down 0.5% as well. FICO should be moving. So FICO again was down over the past couple of days. It's up a little bit right here, 4%, but it did get hit 15% over the past basically week. And then Fubo, they rejected a buyout from Disney yesterday, is what you guys were saying in the chat. And this stock is right here up 6%. Looks like they want to do it on their own. They got that Disney lawsuit taken care of a couple months ago, and that helped the stock pump from like $1 to $3 or $1.50 to $3. And now the stock at almost $4. It looks like, based on them rejecting the Disney news. Or at least that's what I heard yesterday. So no, Disney's not merging with them. That's from my understanding. Or, see, I don't fully understand Fubo that well, but what I heard is that they are rejecting a Disney buyout. And if that's wrong, but that's why the stock is moving, then this is a little scary, because if that's the only reason the stock is moving, then, if that's not actually true, then that might not be happening. But then if that's not the reason the stock is moving, then what is the reason is my question. And if it's just pure momentum, then this could just be algos or option traders getting into it, if that's not anything to do with Disney on this. Disney is buying 70% of Fubo. See, but let's see if that's actually. Yeah, but hold on. That was in January 6th. They agreed to that. The question is, okay, so I think some of the people yesterday were saying Fubo's reneging out of that deal. I don't necessarily know if that's true. That might not be the case. Robin right here, 65.91. That's down a little bit currently right now. Fubo did not reject the merger. Okay, so then the reason Fubo is running is because we're likely going to see some type of merger happening right there. And that's up 5.1%. If they're buying 70% of Fubo, they might as well buy the whole thing though, right? Like, why would they just buy 70% of it? Especially because Fubo is not a large company. Feels like they would just take them out right there. Charter Cox announced their own merger, which means the Disney deal will definitely go through. All right, well, looks like as we're getting closer to that deal, that's why we're seeing some of this momentum up 5%. Just to end the loss out, actually, okay, that's actually a good point. They probably did want to end the lawsuit, so they agreed to getting some of them being acquired as well. Okay, what else do we see right now? Googs, are we still at 173? We are at 173. Or sorry, 175. There you go. Google breaking out a little bit. Who's been buying Google at all in this 170, 165 range? Has anyone been really kind of buying into strength on this thing? By the way, 55% of you say pump on Nvidia. Decent chunk of you. So we will see later throughout the day how that plays out. U.S. Department of Labor has withdrawn its 2022 guidance that warned fiduciaries against including cryptocurrency and 401k plans. Wow. Well, that's an update. Dude, this is Trump's SEC. This is Trump's government now. They are withdrawing 2022 guidance that warned fiduciaries against including cryptocurrency in 401k plans. That's kind of I mean, dude, that is nice to see, dude. From every angle, we are seeing more institutional adoption of this. Now, will fiduciaries still advise clients to have Bitcoin? Probably not, because they probably don't want to take on that risk. But still, the fact that they're not legally being barred from doing so is not the worst thing in the world. So definitely very bullish for Google. A bunch of you guys are saying I bought some Google in April, got 2027 Google Leaps as well. Again, dude, I think Google should do well. The one thing I am worried about, though, is just like that search revenue growth. One also thing that I found out about yesterday, and forgive me for my ignorance, but I legitimately found out about this yesterday. Apparently Waymo, I did not know this, bro. The only number we hear on Waymo is 10 million rides. 10 million rides. They did 10 million rides. Okay. Waymo has 2,000 cars in operation. And by, if you assume the most optimistic estimates, they're going to have maybe 5,000 in the next year and a half. And that, again, that's still being pretty optimistic. I think they have plans to get to about 3,500. I'm just saying, if Tesla does figure out FSD, and they're getting pretty damn close based on the fact that it could take me to Boston with 0 interventions for 5 hours, Tesla has 7 million vehicles on the road. If even 10%, 5% of them join the robotaxi network, they are going to have hundreds of thousands of vehicles on the road versus Waymo. And again, yeah, each car in Waymo costs $150,000. For Tesla, it's the people already own the cars, right? So all they need is people's buy-in to be able to put them into the network. I am a little curious why everyone's so excited about Waymo when Tesla could unleash a massive fleet if they figure out FSD. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but hopefully that does, right? That's the bull case for Tesla. And then the cost per mile is significantly lower than a Waymo. Not saying Waymo's not going to have any part of the market, but why wouldn't people have more access to Tesla, have less geofencing from a Tesla because they're not using LiDAR, and then pay less for a Tesla robotaxi? Now, again, there's a lot of ifs in that assumption, and the stock price is pretty much predicated on Tesla on those ifs. Google doesn't get that type of premium because people don't like to use their imagination with Google, but they love using their imagination for what Tesla could be like. But if Tesla does turn on a switch and 100,000 cars across the country are able to pick someone up and take them to the airport without being geofenced, again, they're going to be geofenced in Austin for the first couple months. So like it's not going to be a fast process to make this happen. But when it does happen, I am curious why exactly everyone's so excited about Waymo. Like just from a logical perspective, the 10 million rides to me is irrelevant. Like I don't see how that number matters. That number matters if there is no Tesla in the world. But if there's a Tesla in the world that could get 10 million rides overnight, if they just immediately scale hundreds of thousands of vehicles and they have a better product when it comes to self-driving versus Waymo, I don't know, dude. It's just something to think about. Like maybe that's why Waymo's not getting the premium that Tesla's getting on this stock. Tesla's seconds away from dominating FSD for the last 8 years. So I know Tesla's been down on their timeline, but the point is it's really getting close. And I think, if anything, my Boston trip is evidence. And I'm not the only person. There's a lot of people that are saying FSD is getting ready to be rolled out. And if unsupervised comes out in the next year, I mean, it's going to be in Austin, even though it's going to be geofenced and all that stuff. So it's going to come out in different cycles. But Elon said there should be hundreds of thousands of Teslas by the end of the year in Austin. Or sorry, by the end of 2026 in Austin, which so in about 18 months. And it's going to be unsupervised. If it's unsupervised with neural nets, no LiDAR, none of all that geofencing stuff by the end of 2026, and Waymo has maybe 3,000 cars on the road, how exactly is this a debate? Like, I just feel like Tesla's going to win this market. Not saying Waymo's going to lose the market. It's just Waymo's not getting the premium that Tesla's going to get if they're not able to take the overall sector of the market, which obviously Waymo has 100% basically the market right now because they're the only ones doing these rides. So you are giving Tesla too much leeway on the time it'll take to Tesla do what Waymo is. Tesla will start geofence also, as Roy and Tanner pointed out. It's an uphill battle for regulation. Yeah, look, I'm not trying to say that Tesla's going to do this overnight. I'm just saying if Google doesn't figure this out in the next 2 years and Tesla does, and let's say in the next 2 years, Google has, 10,000 cars and Tesla has 150,000. Like this seems kind of obvious what's going to happen because Google's going to have to deal with the same regulations as Tesla's, right? Like so eventually when the product scales, it will be years from now. And the question will be who has the better product and who has the most amount of scale of that product. I don't know. Maybe it's Tesla. Why can't both exist? Of course they can exist. But if Tesla's 80% of the market and Waymo is 20%, I mean, maybe it's just not going to be as aggressively exciting for Google, is my point. So I don't know. We're going to see. But I think Tesla's going the hard route of solving the product, and Google's kind of taking the cheap way out with LiDAR, because Google can't do, or Waymo can't do what Tesla's doing right now in regards to like real FSD drives for multiple hours in complex areas. But maybe that's the better route to get scale first, because they have 10 million rides. Tesla has 0. It just might not be something that plays out in the long term if Tesla actually solves the core problem. So again, that's not even bearish Google. That's just trying to say, hey, maybe Tesla wins this robotaxi race in a more aggressive way than what we think. Okay, what else? Is anything else moving? CoreWeave's down 7% of the day. That one's getting hit. Uber's flat. Not Waymo's flat. Walmart's flat. Lyft is flat. Dell's flat. A lot of these stocks are not really moving, folks. I think everyone's scared of Nvidia. Tesla going below 360. I would not be surprised for the market to be flat until that Nvidia earnings. S&P 592, so the S&P is up a little bit, and it's green. But overall, we're not seeing a ton of headlines right here as we're waiting for Nvidia earnings. NVTS is tanking. This one is not tanking. Well, it is down from where it was. It was at $7. Oh, it was at $8 in the pre-market. Okay, so yeah, it's down from $8 in the pre-market, but it's still green on the day. It's also up 250% over the past week, so I don't think anyone can complain. FICO's moving. Yeah, this FICO dip. I saw a lot of people on Twitter buying this dip. You got some people just saying a company like FICO getting this type of dip is very similar to United Health. Like, it just doesn't deserve to trade at these multiples. So not surprising that this one's getting some love as well, up about 6% currently right now. And again, on Tesla, I'm not trying to be delusional about it. I am not some super uber Tesla bull. Otherwise, I would have bought this thing at 200, right? So when I'm saying it, I'm being pretty objective about it. I didn't buy this stock at 200 and be like, oh, I'm aggressively buying the dip. I bought Google at 154. So it's like right before earnings, right? Like I had calls for the past year. So it's more so a question of logically, I did not know Waymo has 2,000 cars. I mean, Tanner said, I was like, what? They have 2,000 cars? Like, this is like a joke compared to what Tesla could unveil if they figure it out. There will be hundreds of thousands of vehicles in seconds on the robotaxi network. And if they get the cost per mile lower than a Waymo, then it's GG, because everyone's going to pick the cheaper price. And that kind of started to, click in my head why Waymo doesn't get a premium. Like, what is so exciting about it that gives it a premium? Doesn't mean it's going to fail. It just means that it might not be as exciting in a couple of years as Tesla if they figure it out. So that's kind of how I'm thinking of it. How's the Cybertruck doing? Okay, yes. You guys trying to think I'm defending Tesla here, dude. Yes, the Cybertruck is not really done that well. Although in New Jersey, for some reason, everyone has a Cybertruck. Like, literally, I see one every other mile that I drive. Like, it's like, dude, I saw one that was freaking like painted yesterday. Someone put their logo on it. Like, people love the Cybertruck in New Jersey. But even if the Cybertruck's not doing well, my point is, I think FSD could be or robotaxi could be a really solid product compared to Waymo. It's just a question of, when it plays out. Same in Connecticut. They're everywhere. Yeah, dude. There's a lot of Teslas in Boston too. There's a lot of more Model Ys, not really Cybertrucks, but there is a decent chunk that I saw back in Boston. All right. What else do we have going on? Let's see what other updates. Stocks are flat. Nothing's moving because of Nvidia. Everyone's worried about that. GameStop's down 4%. Is GameStop getting hit after they bought Bitcoin? GameStop is down 4%. Kind of pumped last week anyway. So I guess people are selling the news. Again, we talked about the EU said they're going to be speaking every other day. Specifically, they're going to be speaking to Trade Representative Greer and Lutnick. I'm seeing that update right now. EU is going to be speaking to Greer and Lutnick every other day to get this European Union deal done. I guess Bessent's still talking to China. Telegram and XAI agree to a partnership. Telegram and XAI. Telegram's also raising some money as well. So you got the Telegram CEO announcing that they've agreed to a 1-year partnership to distribute Grok into Telegram's users and integrate it into all their other existing products. So that's pretty good for X. And then you have the S&P 500 at 592 currently right now. The Palantir announcement, again, we don't know when this is going to happen, but apparently Karp is going to be speaking with the director of the Federal Housing Administration today to talk about mortgage fraud. This is going to be something that I think is relatively interesting, especially if they get a deal done. And I think they already work with the FHA, but maybe they're going to be expanding some of their partnership. So that's something we're going to be able to see a little bit later today. We also have this headline. The Saudi AI Humane Fund is going to be launching a 10 billion subsidiary VC fund. So that's backed by the $940 billion public investment fund in Saudi Arabia. They're going to be targeting 7% of global model training by 2030, and they've inked $23 billion in deals with Nvidia, AMD, Qualcomm, and AWS. So we are starting to see more investments from the Saudis. It looks like they're going to be one of the biggest spenders over the next decade when it comes to AI. S&P 500, 590 right here, going red on the day. And, that should be bullish also for Nvidia. UNH, are we pumping on UNH? UNH is, there you go, up about 2%, 299. Trying to get back to that $300 level as the rest of the market stays relatively flat right here. Speaking of Palantir also, so we had Karp meet Poland's deputy prime minister yesterday as well. So there you go. You got Palantir, you got Karp, and Poland's deputy prime minister. Hopefully getting some deals in Poland. We definitely need more international government growth. They were in this office right here. I believe this is their DC office. This is where me, Eliano, and Garcia took the picture. That Palantir logo. We were sitting on that chair back in, or that couch back in November 2024. So this is that same room. Looks like they're talking and hopefully getting some deals done. You guys see those snacks in the back? Do they have so many good snacks? It's like typical tech company. They have like so many amazing snacks. But there you go. Dude, international growth. We need a lot more of it. And if we do get more growth, I think that could also be a catalyst for the stock. Palantir right here at 125. Dominic says, greetings from Poland. Shout out to Poland. If you're in the chat, let me know if you are in the chat from Poland. I had some Polish friends back in middle school, believe it or not. I didn't really have a ton of Polish friends in high school, but I remember middle school, the area I was growing up in had a lot of Polish people. So I would love to visit Poland one day and see what the culture is like as well. Okay, what else do we see? NATO floats cybersecurity to be included in new spending target. That's an interesting headline. Are the cybersecurity names moving off that? Let's check the ETF hack. If anyone doesn't want to buy a cybersecurity name, you can just buy hack. That's the cybersecurity ETF, HACK. So that one's flat. CrowdStrike's trying to get to 500. That one down a little bit on the day. So none of these moving. Yeah, NATO's going to need cybersecurity, right? Like they not only need military readiness software, but they definitely need different forms of cybersecurity. That could be a massive market that's unlocked for the Palo Altos, the CrowdStrikes, the Zscalers of the world. All of that stuff as well. Where's Netflix? Netflix hit all-time highs yesterday. Netflix, 1,213. I think that's back to all-time highs. 1,215 was all-time highs. Nvidia volume on the day, 35 million shares already. So people are definitely trading this thing. Nvidia's flat right now. Tesla back to 360. Robin 6620. Palantir 125. SoFi has been pretty flat in the midst of a lot of this momentum. I mean, it jumped from 8 to 13. I guess 8 was the, or 9, 850 or whatever was the absolute lows of the tariff stuff. Year to date, it is down about 10%. Again, we talked about it yesterday. I think interest rates need to be the defining narrative that get cut. But also, even if interest rates get cut, that's going to help their lending business. The lending business needs to be seen as a tech business based on that lending platform. And that's up to the street to say, hey, if we think the lending platform deserves a tech multiple. And I don't know if it will, but I do know for sure they're going to get a lot more demand if we get rate cuts. It's just if we don't get a rate cut till September, then it might take some time to actually get there. Amit, I have June 20, $125 calls expiring soon on Palantir. What do you think I should do near term in the future with them? So if you bought those calls, that means, you should be looking to exit, right? Like unless you're expecting a massive move on Palantir in the month of June, you are 30 days away from expiration. This is when Theta is killing those options. Your call should be deep in the money. If you bought it, it's barely in the money at 124.95. It's not really at exactly 125. So based on the price you bought it at, you might be up. If you bought it, when Palantir was like 130 or something, then you're probably down. If you sold that call, then I wouldn't do anything. I would just let it. I would wait until June 20th, and if it gets above 125, you could just roll it. But if you bought it, then you're going to be having to look to an exit pretty soon, unless you're expecting a 20% move or a 10% move that gets it well above 125 in June, which could happen. But again, you don't fully know, which is why buying the calls is always a little bit more risky. Where's Rocket Lab? Rocket Lab getting hit. Rocket Lab getting hit. So this is not surprising to me that Rocket Lab's getting hit. The entire market is going red right now, or at least relatively flat. And I think it's literally because of Nvidia. I should have expected this. I forgot to just recognize that. Yeah, on Nvidia earnings, the market doesn't tend to move, dude. And if it does move, it goes down. The market's not going to pump when the most important company on the planet is reporting earnings and no one knows what they're going to say. Or no one at least is confident about what they're going to say. You know, this is not 4 quarters ago where everyone knew Nvidia was going to beat and raise. This is, you know, it's a $3 trillion company at this point. Everyone's still going to be surprised if they can actually put up these numbers. So, yeah, Nvidia right here at 135 being flat. Not crazy. You can't trade Rocket Lab on German exchanges anymore because of some report. Really? Is that true? I think I heard another person say that today. You're not allowed to trade. What type of report came out that's not allowing you to trade it on Germany? Does that mean they make you sell your shares too if you have it? Or does that mean you just can't buy any existing shares? Yeah, it's true. Dude, that's actually true. Germany's not letting you. It's because of the name change? Well, then that's temporary then. That's not going to be a permanent ban on trading Rocket Lab. That seems more realistic, dude. I don't know why Germany would ban you from trading it. Shout out to Bon ER. Thanks for everything you do, bro. Watch it with my kids. Shout out to you. Shout out to the kids. Happy they are watching and hopefully enjoying some of these stock market commentary. Again, dude, at the Boston meetup, we had this lady bring her 5th grader, and it was incredible. And she was super energetic, which was the good part. You know, she wasn't just sitting in the corner and like bored while all the adults were talking. She was talking to everybody about investing and her life and her hobbies and all this stuff. And it was just so cool to see someone at that young of an age even take an interest in this, you know? So again, that talk I did to kids in high school, I think 2 weeks ago, again, they were asking me about how do we hedge in a late bull, early bear market. I was like, what? How do you even know what a bull and a bear market is? Like, I couldn't believe it. These are 15-year-olds. Kids are moving fast. The kids are moving fast. Now, Okta is also down 12% today. So Okta, I don't know why they're down. Their guidance was not bad. They beat on the top and the bottom. I think they cited not tariff volatility, but like uncertainty was their word on their fiscal year guidance, but they didn't really reduce their guidance. And if they did, it was a minuscule reduction. So I am still confused why Okta took a 13% hit. Like, I don't get that. 12.6% down right here. But for some reason they did. So that one definitely is down. But even yesterday, I still didn't understand why it deserved to take that bad of a hit. Rocket Lab right here, still flat on the day. Joby, that's up 25%. My goodness, that Toyota deal. Super bullish for Mr. Joby. And then you've got Hims at 51.92. Currently right now. When will you buy Hims? Oh my gosh, bro. Should I just buy Hims? Should I just do it? Should I do it today? Be objective in the chat. Don't let your biases, because you know when I buy, the stupid thing's going to tank to 45. Like, I don't know, dude. I feel like we've had a lot of momentum on the name, and it needs to chill out a little bit. And I feel like below 50 is very possible. Not because it deserves to be there, just because, you know, like things sell off. Like, it happens. Oh my gosh, dude. Please buy it, then I can get calls cheaper. Yo, why does Nate pop out? Dude, how long was he just listening to the stream in the background? Then he hears Hims and he just pops out of nowhere, bro. My goodness, dude. Guy was probably working from home, had me in the background, was doing work, making some eggs, getting some coffee. Then he hears Hims like a freaking bat signal. He has to go to the chat and start typing. Say he has Hims senses, bro. It's ridiculous. Okay, here's what I'll say. I will buy 100 shares of Hims, but not today. I'm going to do a poll in the chat. Should we buy 25% of those 100 shares, aka 25 shares of Hims? So buy 25 shares of Hims, yes or no? You guys are going to decide in the chat. So instead of buying the full 100, which is kind of what I would want to start off with, we'll do 25%, just because I'm also a little worried that it falls below 50. Just because I think there's been a lot of momentum, and it's not crazy for this to consolidate at that 45 to 50 range. And so, well, wait, can we also just sell a put? Hold on. How good are the put premiums? Maybe that's the better route, guys. Honestly, maybe that's the better route. Let's check right now. So let's go to Hims. It's down 3%, so the premium should be up. Remember, when you're selling a put, you're agreeing to buy 100 shares of a stock at a lower price than it is today. So you want the stock to go down, so the put buyers pay a higher premium. Let's do what? June 20th, 1 month out, sell put. Holy crap, dude. These these premiums are insanity. On a $45 put, you're getting $200. So 200 divided by 4,500. That is a 4.5% return for agreeing to buy HIMS. 52 minus 45. If I agree to buy HIMS 15% down from today's price, I would get paid 4% to wait a month. That's not crazy, bro. That's not crazy. I think we'll do that. Forget the 25 shares, bro. This is a little bit better. All right, so we're gonna do that. I'm gonna do that right here. I'm gonna sell the $25 put, or sorry, the $45 put. Okay, so you guys just see it get filled on Legend. So I'm swiping up. So I'm putting $4,500 of, there it is. I'm putting $4,500 of collateral. Remember, 45 times 100. 100 shares you are obligated to buy if the stock goes to 45. I am saying, hey, I like HIMS, but not at 51. I like it at 45. Give it to me 15% cheaper. The market's saying, okay, someone's going to give you $204 I got to wait for it to get that cheap. And then if it does get that cheap, my actual adjusted cost basis will be 43 because I'm already getting paid $2. So 45 minus 2 is 43. And then if the stock falls to 30, I'll probably be mad that I'm buying it at 43. But if I bought it at 51 and it fell to 30, I would be even more mad. So that is where selling a put on a stock you're actually bullish on, that is also as volatile as HIMS, is not the craziest thing. And based on the numbers, I think it's cheap at 51. I just think the momentum is high. So I think it's even cheaper at 45, but I'd rather just wait. So there you go. That's what we got. All right. I'm part of the HIMS community. No one can get mad at me anymore. I'm in the community. I have literally created a contractual obligation to own this stock. So no one has to keep telling me to buy the stock anymore. It's like she's like a side chick right now, dude, right? It's like, you know, it's like I'm talking to her, but I don't really like her like that. So I'm still talking to her. I'm not ignoring her. You know, I'm not leaving her on red or anything like that. So it's, you know, she's still part of my life. She's still part of my life. UDC, thank you for the super chat. Doing work. Are you calling us out again? Yes, I am definitely calling everyone out. But you know, if you're doing work from home today, you're probably not that obsessed with the markets because we're not really moving like crazy. Now, Nvidia, I know it's a 9 to 5, but we start coverage at 3:30. You better put the freaking Microsoft Teams. You better get a mechanism for the mouse to be hovering over the thing so it shows a green light. Or you got to do whatever you got to do. But at 3:30, you get some food, you get some drinks, and you get your ass to the computer because we are going to be streaming Nvidia earnings and figuring out if this market can go higher based on Nvidia. So we'll be live tonight. We will be live tonight to see what happens with Nvidia. It's going to be a theater. It literally is going to be a theater, dude. It's going to be insane. It's going to be absolutely insane. He said HIMS is a boyfriend. Dude, I hate you guys. Dude, whoever said muscle 404 page muscles not found yesterday, that shit was hilarious, bro. It was so mean, but the comedic timing on it was incredible. And yeah, 404 muscles not found was great. It was great. Webull right here. Is Webull up? Webull up 7.6%. Webull still green. Pinterest flat. Enphase down about 1.4%. Nubank up 12.15, or it's up 1.72% back over 12. Let's check the semis. The semis all have to be red today based on freaking Nvidia. All of them, dude. Like clockwork. TSM, Intel, ASML, AMD, all of them waiting for Nvidia to report. Oh, Elf has earnings today as well. Elf and Salesforce. So these companies, Elf right here, Elf is at a monster move ever since those China tariffs got taken off. So that's going to be very, very important. And then we'll have Salesforce a little bit later today as well. You know, the $8 billion acquisition on Salesforce, dude, I don't know if that's super bullish. Like I talked to a couple people yesterday and they said Salesforce bought a pipeline builder and they bought a shitty pipeline builder. So I don't know, dude. I kind of think they're running out of ideas as well in terms of growth. And I get it. They're such a big company that, you know, they've scaled so much, they can't organically grow as much. But they bought Slack for $41 billion, dude. This is a company that has not had the best history with big acquisitions that integrate seamlessly. So I don't think it's bearish that they're buying in Informatica, but I also don't know if that's a super big boost to the stock. but their earnings today, we're gonna have to see how that plays out. Amid buy Hims, I'm holding it below 10 and expect 100 by the end of the year. All right. If you're going to, thank you for this. If you're going to send a literal $52 super chat, I have to buy the freaking stock. If he's going to do that, all right. We're buying it right here. Here we go. You'll see it on Legend pop up. All right, there you go. We bought one share of Hims. Now I am actually in the community and I have a put at 45. So thank you, brother, for the $52 super chat. We are officially in. And if it goes to 60 tomorrow, I'm selling. No, I'm just kidding. Now we're in. We're in the community. So there you go. Now we're in. This is the same person that asked about Corey bet 100, is it? Dude, that's hilarious. Dude, you bought it at $10 though. You're sitting on. Okay, hold on. Who's sitting on like a multi-bagger on Hims right now? Like a multi-bagger. Like 3x. Like who's sitting on a 3x on Hims? Like, do people have this thing below $20 average? This stock has made a lot of people a lot of money, bro, in retail. And that's another reason I love it. Even if I don't own it, I really love that retail got this right. And the institutions have been so wrong on this, including Bank of America. And it's a testament to retail participation in due diligence in the markets. Like every time this happens, I'm so happy because it means retail, especially when it's not a meme stock, when it's like a real company. It means that the hedge fund guys that say that retail is stupid, like, no, they're not. Time and time again, example after example, retail is finding names and beating the S&P on going long on those names. Wow, dude, a lot of you guys are up on this thing. Austin has a $6 average, Imperium below 20. Nick says 12. Why didn't you guys tell me to buy it at 12 then? What was all the freaking gatekeeping about, dude? Holy crap. Eric bought it at 26. A lot of you guys are still up double. Suresh is up 15 or a $15 average. Abhishek is at 30. Rohan's up 350%. Yeah, dude. And look, if it falls back to 25, 30, it's an obvious buy. See, this is the beautiful thing about companies that are actually growing and that are real companies. If they fall, like Robin, when it fell to 30, it was so obvious it was a buy the dip. If Hims falls again, anywhere near that 30, it's going to be so obvious. And now there's so many more people that are interested. I'm going to be buying that dip. And so that's the beautiful thing when it's a real company that, and you have a margin of safety of freaking $10, $15 average. It's like, if it does fall 30, 40%, you know people are going to get back in and you don't really have to freak out that much, even if you bought it super early, especially because you'll still be up on the position. You guys should have told me, bro. You guys really should have told me. But I guess you didn't want to let me know about this one. Nate says, wait, you bought Rocket Lab for Matt, but won't buy Hims for me. Okay, I did buy Hims for you, and then they went up 40% in 10 hours, and then I had to sell it. But no, dude, I do want to get more into it. I think there's been a lot of momentum. Maybe this dip is the end of it, but it would not surprise me to see it lower than 50. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. It is what it is. I'll just keep selling puts at a higher strike. You know, I'll keep breaking in some premiums. And if I do get assigned, which I probably will eventually, I'll deal with it from that level. What are the covered call premiums like, though? I mean, there's still a June 20th covered call on Hims. Dude, this is insane, bro. This is literally insane. You can get $100 for selling a $70 call a month out. You can get freaking $250 for selling a $60 call a month out. That is one reason to buy the shares. It's like the calls itself could make it worth buying the shares and not having to be too worried about it. Yeah, so I made you 40% in a day and you don't trust me. Okay, that's not what I'm trying to say, Nate. Just saying that 40% in 10 hours was a bit aggressive. You should have told me to not sell when I was ready to sell, bro. Problem is you let me sell at $40. Nate says, I sold $80 calls for next Friday and got 22 cents. That is insanity, bro. In freaking sanity. Which stock 10X is first, Rocket Lab or Hims? That's a good question. Let's do that in the chat. Let's do a poll on that. Rocket Lab or Hims? What do you guys think? Which one 10X is first? Rocket Lab or Hims? I'm actually curious to see what... Okay, from these prices though, right? So Hims would have to go to 500. Rocket Lab would have to go to 300. So Hims would have to go to 500. Rocket Lab would have to go to 300. Oh, we got Dan Ives on Nvidia. Let's see what he has to say. And then we'll keep going from there.
40% from those lows. Our Bush analyst Dan Ives is here at Post 9 talk about what he expects for the quarter. He's got a buy rating and a target of 175. Dan, good morning.
Yeah,
good
great
to
to
see
be
you.
here.
What do you think is going to be the story tonight?
I think it's all going to be about what demand looks like. Obviously, China will be the headwind in terms of H20, but what they see from sovereigns and ultimately more and more enterprise. And we think in terms of big tech CapEx, that's actually going to exceed $325 billion. So I think the net, this is going to be one, when you hear from the godfather of AI, Jensen, it's going to be bullish. I view it as a bright green light for tech because it's going to show, despite the fears, demand still outstripping supply 8-to-1, even when you X out China.
What do you think? What is his calculus on China? He's got so many different constituencies to please on that one, right?
Look, I think it's a $3 billion headwind basically going into this quarter, but I think that's something that's already started factored in. I think the way the street's going to look at the quarter, it's less focused on the quarter. It's more on, okay, what does Middle East be? What is sovereigns? What does that bring in? And I think for him, it's a balancing act because he needs to play nice in the sandbox when it comes to 202 area code, but also doesn't want to give away that China business to Huawei. And that right now is that sort of balancing act for Jensen.
Do you think their product rollout schedule is back to being smooth? Fewer hiccups like we saw in 24?
Yeah, we saw much less hiccups in terms of supply chain, everything we saw in Asia.
Yeah.
And I think it just comes down to, Carl, like there's one chip in the world fueling the AI revolution, and it's led by Jensen and Nvidia. And I think even though others trying to narrow the gap, that's the reality. And I think also speaks to Trump administration knows their big poker chip in all this negotiation. It's Nvidia as well as Apple.
So so the cancellation of the diffusion rule. This was like a big deal on the Middle East trip that they went on. Is that going to be reflected in guidance?
So I think it's still too early there, but based on our estimate, I mean, we think this ultimately opens up another $1 trillion of market opportunity, not just for Nvidia, but for AI revolution. When you think about Middle East, all the data center build outs, what this ultimately means. And I think the commentary that Jensen's going to talk about is what they see in the pipeline. That's why, in our view, the quarter, okay, I think guidance would be generally in line, maybe slightly better. But I think what the streets focus on is what does this mean for medium-term outlook? Does this change any of their sort of plans? And I think this is going to be a huge vote of confidence for the AI revolution. In my opinion, this is going to be a catalyst that you'll see tech new highs.
You do. You think everything, I mean, if in fact you're right that everything gets floated upward.
I mean, look, and we've talked, obviously it started off white knuckles. We navigated through it. You've seen steps off the cliff in terms of de-escalation of tariffs, but it comes down to like, this is a fourth industrial revolution. And when you look at the amount spent, for every dollar spent on a NVIDIA chip, there's a $10 multiplier across the rest of tech. That's why you see from software to nuclear, ACO and others. And I think that right now, the use cases, as you've talked about a lot, use cases are playing out. Palantir, Snowflake, and I think you're going to see more.
So why is it flat this year, NVIDIA?
Because I think it's all about, right now, they're in the eye of the storm. And I believe this quarter is going to be a huge positive inflection point. We call it 175, bull case 225, to what I believe this is going to be the charge to not just but I believe $5 trillion market cap and look in the next few years, despite the tariff fears.
So you think, after the call today and when tomorrow we're sitting here, you might be on with us again. We're going to say, oh, now we've got what? We've got more visibility to 27 and 28 in terms of earnings, and you feel comfortable with the target price in the 200s?
And I think that's maybe even conservative relative to my view of like physical AI. We're only 2% through in terms of AI penetration, really zero Europe, zero in terms of Asia ex-China. So you start thinking there's only one chip fueling it. So my opinion continues to be the AI party. It started at 9 p.m. It's now about 10:30 p.m., goes to 4 a.m. And it's led ultimately by, you look at Jensen, you look at the chip, you can't go anywhere without that. That's why Middle East, everyone's focused on, could I get up in line ahead of China? That continues to be the focus.
Fair to say that in the month of April, tariffs and policy darkened your view significantly, right?
There was an Armageddon moment.
Yes, I know. So I guess my question is, how confident are you there won't be a repeat of that?
Yeah, I mean, my view is just the de-escalation that we've seen from DC. They recognize that some of what they were talking about was basically impossible. So they've had to de-escalate. Now you start to see more and more negotiations. Look, will there be, some sort of tariffs? Is it going to complicate supply chain? Of course. Apple clearly needs to navigate its own situation relative to India. But my view is that now you're starting to get to a level set where if it's 10, 15% tariffs, you can navigate that, but that is not changing in terms of tech, in terms of AI spending, in terms of enterprise. And that's our view, that this is still, we're in the second inning of a 9-inning game relative to where AI plays. And that's why I think this is going to be an inflection point when you hear from Godfather of AI, Jensen.
There is one house today arguing that Palantir may be the best short in the market. You think it's gotten too expensive?
Who said that? Who said that? Hold on. I'm going to try to find that. Who came out? Maybe that's why Palantir was down yesterday. I'm going to try to find out who said that.
Look, I think they hated it 15, despise it at 50, yelling from the mountaintops at 100. In my opinion, this is, when it comes to, that's why it's the messy of AI. I believe we're talking about $1 trillion market cap for Palantir in the next few years. And I think when you look what Carp and Palantir are doing, they, along with Nvidia, will be leading the AI revolution. So I think any of the shorts, and they've tried it for the last few years, I think they're going to be way wrong, underestimated.
You think market cap goes 4x in the next few years on Palantir?
I believe it's $1 trillion market cap next 2 to 3 years. And I think, look.
Okay, so I love Dan, but this stuff, I can't really, dude, I don't know. I don't think it gets to $1 trillion in 2 years. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. One of the OG Palantir YouTubers comes out and says, I don't think it gets to $1 trillion in 2 years. I mean, and if it does, I will be very happy, but I don't think it does. I think it's a little aggressive when Dan Ives says it's going to increase in $800 billion in market cap in 2 years, when they're probably not going to be putting up, more than, at the most aggressive estimate, $6 billion in revenue by the end of 2027 a year. So that part I just don't agree with, but I don't think we have to go back down to $30 either. So that's kind of my take on this, but I'm going to try to find what short report came out today on Palantir.
Haters hate on this one, but I think they continue to underestimate the pure success that they're seeing from an algorithm.
I mean, almost every day also there's been a catalyst on Palantir, some new announcement that they're doing either with the government, the Defense Department, other government agencies, or corporates. I guess the trick there is they just have to ramp those sales to match the valuation.
Yeah, and look, and they're doing it basically with no direct sales force. And that's why I think Carp, he's playing chess, others are playing checkers. And I think you're starting to realize more and more on government, on enterprise, and that's why you cannot talk AI revolution without saying Palantir.
It's going to be a heck of a night tonight, at least on Nvidia. Dan,
all right, Dan is bullish. He is bullish. Now, I didn't find a short report, but I did see this yesterday that I didn't show you guys yet. So the Bears of Wall Street, which is a Seeking Alpha group that writes articles, they said, Palantir, we were wrong. Summary, we closed our short position on Palantir at a loss. We believe that we were wrong on the timing and not the idea itself. However, it's important to always remember that the market can be irrational longer than you can stay solvent. We rate Palantir as a sell since the company is extremely overvalued and investing in it right now offers minimal margin of safety. So I don't know what short report they're talking about. I'll try to find it, but I don't see any headlines about it. But this is an article that was getting some traction on Seeking Alpha yesterday because they ended up, doing cocaine. And Carp has made it very clear that if you go down that route, it is something that could be rather aggressive in terms of how you engage when it comes to shorting Palantir. Again, for those that don't know what I'm talking about, this is a quick 30 seconds on how the CEO of Palantir thinks about the shorts.
And away from these short sellers who are going short on a truly great American company, not just ours, but just love pulling down great American companies so that they can pay for their Coke. And the best thing that could happen to them is we will lead their Coke dealers to their homes after they can't pay their bills. And that's like one of my...
Surely all short sellers.
Yeah, well, go ahead, do your thing. We'll do our thing.
So as it relates...
So, I mean, look, Palantir short float still is less than 3%, guys. Like people as ridiculously overvalued and aggressive that people say this name is, which I'm not saying it's not aggressive on the multiple, but I'm saying the people that try to say it is the single biggest bubble in the history of the United States, that hedge fund dude yesterday saying, oh, admit it's going to go down 99% and blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, then short it. If it's going to go down 99%, why is the short float 2.6%? Like, it could still fall aggressively. I'm just saying the shorts are not that confident that it's actually going to go down and it's the biggest bubble in the world because they're not shorting it. They're shorting HIMS. Like, they're not shorting Palantir. By the way, Tesla going green, baby, 363, back above 359. So Tesla's green. But I do think the shorts are scared. I'm using Wall Street Journal. Anyone can find these short floats. If you just go to Wall Street Journal and just type in a ticker and then you scroll down, you can get all this data for free. So just go on Wall Street Journal and type in a ticker and you can find the short float. But let's check HIMS, by the way. This is updated as of May 15th, which was a week ago. HIMS is still at 31%, which is crazy, bro. Like, I mean, like, people are shorting stocks. They're just choosing not to short Palantir in this market because they don't want to deal with the ramifications. SoFi short float is 13.5% still. This is another reason this stock's not moving, dude. Like, you still got 14% of the float that's sold short. And the shorts are having a great time with it because the stock's not moving. So they're able to borrow the shares and do whatever they want with it right now. But with Palantir, we're not seeing that at all. Let me check Tesla's short float. Tesla also, I think, is like less than 5%. Nvidia, remember when Nvidia was like 15% and then Nvidia became Nvidia? Tesla's 3%. Like, even Tesla, right? Tesla, Palantir, the most overvalued, egregious companies on the planet, ridiculous multiples, yada, yada, yada. The shorts are scared. And if they're not going to short it, could the stocks fall? Of course. But it's not going to be due to a short attack because they've just gotten burned so many times. I mean, Tesla historically burned many, many hundreds of billions of dollars with short sellers for trying to go short on any of these names. So Tesla and Palantir, if they fall, it's going to be due to something other than the shorts. But that's why the short reports are kind of stupid because none of them are actually going to engage in shorting because they're just too afraid to take that risk. Where's Rocket Lab? Are we still below 30? Rocket Lab 28.92. That's up a little bit from $28. Lemonade, is that one green? Lemonade is flat, down about 1.36%. I think they have earnings this week, Lemonade. I don't think they had earnings already. Maybe they did. I'll confirm for that. But that stock down about 1.3%. Trump is not live. I don't think he's going live today. I don't know if he's saying anything today. He has been talking about Putin playing with fire. He's getting really annoyed at Russia. He is saying that EU is making good progress on trade deals, but those are the main updates we had. Lemonade already had earnings. Well, it wasn't today then, right? It must have been last week. I don't think it was today. I think didn't we cover Lemonade? It was a beat on the top and the bottom, but it wasn't like the market super excited about it. They definitely already had earnings. It was a while ago. Jose's in the chat. All right, Jose, I'm gonna give you a call right now. So let's call Jose. Let's get our Nvidia expert on the phone. He can't make it on the computer today, so we're gonna call him. He's probably in the locker room with Jensen right now. That's probably why he can't make it onto the stream.
Jello.
Jose, this is your Super Bowl. What's up, man?
Yeah, it is. Once every quarter. I'm super excited about today.
Bro, tell me the truth. Are you with Jensen in the locker room right now, preparing?
No, I'm definitely not. I'm in vacation right now in Florida, so I'm off in the morning except for this stream, but then back to work tonight.
Wait, so hold on. You're gonna take off from vacation to do the Nvidia stream then?
Of course. I have to. It's the biggest day of the quarter, so the wife and the kid understand.
All right, this is going to be exciting. I got a bunch of questions for you. If you guys have some questions in the chat, put it in. But give me your first off, like raw take on what you think the quarter will look like, and then I want to ask you some specific stuff about margins.
All right, so first raw takes. I mean, first let me just stop on the top level. As an investor, I mean, there's so many tailwinds right now coming for this company. So whatever happens in this quarter, I would say if the stock drops, I would consider a buying opportunity because, I mean, in the long-term tailwind, what do we have? We just got the massive UAE trade deal. We had the Elon just announced a few weeks ago in an interview that he's building 1 million cluster GPU server for his XAI. We have OpenAI building massive Stargate projects, one in UAE, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get a lot overall throughout different countries in the world. I think Japan might be the next Stargate we might see and other countries are going to follow with massive Stargate projects. So overall, what I'm trying to say is long term, I don't really care much about the short term, but obviously investors want to know what's going on today. So for these numbers, I mean, earnings, these numbers, I want to say we've gotten already confirmation from all the big hyperscalers that they are spending dramatically on CapEx. So I believe earnings and revenue are going to be a beat on this quarter. And I think most investors are already expecting that. I think the biggest question is the guidance for quarter two. And the main reason for that, the guidance question, is we saw kind of that Chinese ban of the H20 happened throughout this quarter, and Nvidia had to write off a few things, about $5.5 billion in inventory, which correlates to about $17 billion in revenue for the full year, for whatever inventory they had. So the question is, how much does this Chinese market impact them in the guidance? Because we already saw analysts reduce kind of their estimations on the guidance by about 1 or 2 billion. I think it's closer to 46 billion. Like I said, I'm not by my computer, so I don't have the actual number, but I think it's closer to $46 billion on consensus for guidance, where if you look the month before the H20 ban, it was closer to like $47, $48 billion. So you see that some analysts are pulling back on that weakness of the Chinese space. So
right.
I think the question is going to be, is there enough demand elsewhere from everything else there to be able to beat those expectations? If we beat those expectations and we showcase that, well, guidance, sure, you drop the guidance because of the Chinese market. While it is an important market, we are seeing the demand elsewhere.
Okay, so JP Morgan yesterday said people are not estimating what the China charge-off will look like for Q2 guidance, and they're not estimating what margins will look like. They're saying like 58% versus 71%. How probable do you think it is that the consensus analysts really aren't looking to the headwinds over the next couple quarters that are coming up for Nvidia?
I think for quarter two, from what the channels I've been following, I definitely have seen a nice reduction on the estimates for quarter two, at least. I don't know maybe how much it is for quarter three. I think maybe analysts, at least for quarter three, is more expecting what we hear from the commentary of Jensen. Are we going to hear that, hey, look, because we did hear those massive UAE trade deals, but the real question is, when do those deals become a tailwind for revenue? Is it something next year, or is it something 2 quarters from now? If it's super close, then I think that's what analysts are probably expecting for quarter three guidance. But for quarter two, I think we definitely have seen analyst expectations go down a bit, especially from some of the flows that I've been following. And the other thing is, this is to me going to be one of the most, I probably say this every earnings, but mostly interesting earnings, because every other earnings that we've had before, we've had some form of issue. I think last quarter was the DeepSeek issue. The quarter before that was kind of like AI demand issue. And with all those issues, I think that everybody was able to answer for Nvidia. For example, the DeepSeek issue. Every hyperscaler said, hey, look, DeepSeek was pretty cool, but we're still going to continue to innovate. It's actually pushing more demand for AI solutions as AI gets cheaper. In forms of the AI demand issue, we saw all the hyperscalers really give us that information before earnings. This, in my opinion, is the only earnings that we've seen in a while where the only one that can answer the Chinese question is Nvidia itself. We didn't have kind of like a buffer room from any other hyperscalers or any other players of how this is impacting Nvidia, where the prior issues. So I think depending on I think the most important thing is going to be the commentary in the guidance of the China market, because it is, I mean, 15 to 20 billion per year is still a healthy amount. Now, I just want to go back to what I said. I think in the long term, we have massive amounts of tailwinds. There's nothing that really freaks me out as an Nvidia investor. It's more going to be that short-term movement and that volatility. And I think that volatility is going to be driven by the Chinese space today.
Do you think the Saudi UAE stuff is priced in already?
I don't think so. I mean, what was the stocks?
Stocks at 135. I mean, it's up from 100 last month.
Yeah. I mean,
I feel like if it's not priced in, it's at least kind of compensating for the China loss of revenue to an extent.
Yes, that is true. So it's somewhat priced in. I think once we start to get kind of like maybe more commentary and color on like when some of that revenue is going to be built. I think we're already expecting some massive deals and some massive AI investments, but we don't really know what quarter. If we start to see maybe a lot earlier than maybe some are expecting, then I do think we can see a nice rally in price. And then we also have the ability that there are reports that Nvidia is also recreating its next generation chip for China to be able to export past these export restrictions. So there's still that tailwind potential there. And I do believe the United States is using AI chips and AI infrastructure as a trading bargaining skill tool. So if there is some form of US and China agreement eventually, there could be some tailwinds for the semiconductor market there. So I think there's a lot of ways that this stock can rally with a lot of the news in the semiconductor space in general.
What's the biggest derivative of Nvidia that you are looking at? Is it a CoreWeave? Is it an SMCI, AMD?
The biggest derivative, I think right now, at least, most investors are still looking at capital expenditure from the big three or the big four, whoever you want to call it. The Nvidia, the Amazons, the AWS, the Google Cloud, the Meta, and the Oracle. So the big five. I think most people are just looking at those capital expenditures. I think the market needs to start looking at other capital expenditures as well. I mean, we have CoreWeave, who's doing about $25 billion in capital, more like 23.5 capital expenditure in fiscal year of 2025. Those are numbers bigger than Oracle. Those are numbers bigger than some of the hyperscalers were just 2-3 years ago. So I think right now the market is only looking at like the big four, the big five, but there's a lot of companies out there like CoreWeave that are spending a lot of money on capital expenditure that really kind of push the reasons to have that tailwind sentiment. Again, I don't know what the stock will do tomorrow. I'm overall bullish in the long term of things. And things like CoreWeave spending about $25 billion and other investments like that. And kind of the sovereign AI, like we saw with the UAE. I think we're going to see sovereign AI, which is individual countries building their own AI infrastructure, is also going to be massive. So those two are big. Now, the automotive market and the robotics market are also pretty exciting for a long-term push for NVIDIA in some new market opportunities.
Do you think CoreWeave is getting a bid based on hype around NVIDIA, or is it kind of just retail pumping it? How do you think this one's playing out?
Oh man, CoreWeave.
And would you touch them at 116, or you'd stay away?
At 116, no. I mean, luckily, if one's watched my channel, we purchased at like $40 on this one. So this is one of in like a month has become a multi-bagger already.
Are you selling or just holding?
Yeah, so I've mentioned in my YouTube channels, this is one where I'm kind of dollar cost averaging out, and I'm not going to sell like my full positions, but I think my risk to reward ratio, and everybody has their own kind of investment styles. I mean, for a stock to 200% for me, and it was a healthy position when we first started. So for me to not lock in some of those gains, especially since I'm already very massively exposed to the AI market, it's almost like a no-brainer to me. Maybe if someone was less exposed to the AI space, you might feel a little bit different. But for someone like me who's very exposed to this AI space, seeing 200% returns in a month is like, okay, I need to take some off the table. So I'm dollar cost averaging out, but I've mentioned I'm not going to completely sell out of my my position on this one. But I think CoreWeave is getting a lot of there's a lot of excitement races for CoreWeave. I think right now there's not a lot amount of shares. I mean, their IPO was a little bit amount of shares that they do. I wouldn't be shocked if the company with this massive price in the next few weeks or so, it shows that it's going to resell some more shares to build up even more and more finance to, you guessed it, buy more and more NVIDIA chips. So I think the cycle is continuing here, but CoreWeave is seeing a lot of growth. They just announced Google they didn't announce it because they can't, but if you go to their website, Google is now a big kind of customer of theirs. Microsoft is a big customer of theirs. OpenAI is a big customer of theirs. And NVIDIA provides them with, they were one of the first to build a GB200 NVL72 system. And to be able to do that as an infrastructure player, even faster than like any cloud server provider, I think that's what the market is at least excited for right now. So again, I am selling my shares and I wouldn't touch it, but I definitely see why investors might be bullish in it right now.
All right, Jose, 3:30. We'll be live. I'm very, very excited for this one. I know you're taking some time off vacation, but this is going to be a big one.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll be in my A game when we do our stream. So a lot of information coming to the viewers, to your viewers. I'll make sure I provide the best I can.
I love it. We love you, Jose. Jose's Twitter right there in the chat. His newsletter, What the Chip Happened. I'm linking that in the chat as well. Jose, I will see you in a couple hours.
All right. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Take care to the community.
Yeah.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. All right, folks. Jose's bullish, but you can tell he's also saying, hey, there might be some concerns around guidance and margins, which I think is very fair to be concerned about. And, you know, when Nvidia was at 115, my take was I don't think they're going to pump all the way to 130 on earnings. Obviously, we've pumped beyond that before earnings. Now my take is I don't think we're going to go to like 150 on earnings. And if we do, I have no problem with that. I just kind of think it's going to need to consolidate at these levels, especially if those China revenue numbers do affect guidance going into Q2. That's not the story of Nvidia. That's one part of them. And so if we drop 15%, I think that's a great dip. But that's not necessarily a reason for it to go up to 150 either, unless Jensen puts out some numbers that we just, that again, the thing about earnings is everything's expected. So the street wants 44 billion. Well, is Jensen going to put up 45 billion, 47 billion? Like, what is he going to put up? And what is he going to guide for Q2? Like, how aggressive is he going to be? And if it's just not going to be that then I don't think, you know, we're going to see a massive move. Remember, Nvidia's already a $3.2 trillion company, 3.3. So, you know, for people that want this to go to 200, we're talking about a $6 trillion company, roundabout 5 point something. It might just take more time. They might need to have a lot of growth to be able to show that, which is why I think covered calls on Nvidia are not a crazy strategy at all either, because you got a lot of people buying these out of the money calls. And in reality, Nvidia just has to kind of grow into the valuation more and more and more versus just get to 4, 5, 6 trillion instantaneously. I'm more worried about Trump tweeting at the end of the day. Dude, if he tweets something before Nvidia earnings, he needs to tweet something about Nvidia, bro. It needs to be like, good luck to Jensen today. We need a presidential vote of confidence. That would be exciting to see. Also, the worst part about today's earnings call, for those that join, I mean, you guys are going to complain in the chat anyway, but the microphone is going to be so bad unless they figured out a way to optimize it. If not, it's going to be like 40 minutes of Colette, the CFO, reading financials. And then the Q&A is going to be very hard to hear. But that's just how Nvidia earnings always are. So it is, unless if the numbers suck, then the call is definitely going to suck because it's going to be hard to listen to. But if the numbers are great, then I think people will be able to deal with it. I don't know why they don't have good AI oriented audio. Like it's weird. Okay, we have some mortgage application reports. So here we go. The volume of U.S. mortgage applications in the U.S. fell by 1.2% the previous week. It was 5.1% over the past 3 months. So mortgage apps are down. The second straight decline was aligned with the increase in benchmark mortgage rates, with a 30-year fixed rate at just about 7%. Applications for a loan to refinance a mortgage, which are more sensitive to short-term changes in the interest rates, fell by 7%. On the other hand, applications for a mortgage to buy a new home rose by 2.7%. So you do have mortgage applications going up and down, more down than not, except for new homes. We did see new homes get way more of a bid. I think we got 730,000 versus 690,000 that the market expected, but the overall housing sector is stuck due to these rates. And I don't think they're going to break out until we get these rate cuts. Also, we have the minutes today by the FOMC, right? That's at 2 p.m. So that's an hour before NVIDIA, or 2 hours before NVIDIA. So that could also be a reason, that markets are a bit cautious right here based on FOMC. You know, the one thing I'll always remember about NVIDIA earnings, it was last year, February. I've told the story before, but February 2024, in my Roth IRA, I had 150 call options on Robinhood that I bought when the stock was $11. Robinhood was $13. Strike price was $25. Nvidia went from 85 to 67 that day, post-split. And the whole market was like really nervous because this was back February 2024. Like, could Nvidia really put up the numbers? Everyone was scared. And so Robinhood started dropping. And I was like, dude, I'm up $5,000. It's in my Roth IRA, no taxes. Let me just sell these options. And I liquidated the entire position. Robinhood goes on to hit $40 by the end of the year. If I'd kept those calls, I would have had $500,000 in my Roth IRA, tax-free, which is like 30 years of $7,000, more than 30 years of $7,000 allocations per year, $7,500 that you can do per year. But Nvidia scared me so much. I was like, dude, what if Robinhood goes back to $7? Like, yada, yada. I was like, I'm up $5,000. That's a lot of money. and I sold. So I will always remember Nvidia was so scary to me. And that's such a stupid reason to be scared about. Not because Nvidia couldn't have tanked. Nvidia crushed it, by the way, and they went back up to $900 or $90 in the next week. But because, like, you know, that can't be the reason why you get out of a call option that you're already up 50% on. And if I had enough conviction in robbing it at the time, I should have kept it. Now, I kept everything in my taxable brokerage, but in my Roth, that's where I sold. So yeah, that was a pretty costly mistake. But hopefully Nvidia still crushes it today like they did last week as well. I did something similar with Tesla in 2019. Dude, I had Tesla. I think my pre-split, I had Tesla like $30, maybe lower than that. Not a lot, maybe like 20, 30 shares, but still, it would have been nice to hold on to that. And I sold it like it didn't even matter back in 2019. And I just, I didn't understand the Tesla thesis. So didn't really know much about it at the time. Now you know how SoftBank feels. Dude, SoftBank has the worst story on it. SoftBank freaking, their Nvidia stake could have been 150 billion. And they sold it for $3 billion. Yeah, here's the tweet. So they sold the firm's 5% stake in Nvidia for 2019. They made $3 billion. If they held, it would be worth $165 billion. And again, Masa-san, he's a legendary investor, but he's made some big mistakes. He got Alibaba right. I think he turned like 20 million into 20 billion on Alibaba. So that was really good. And then he really messed up on WeWork. He lost like $4 billion. Uber, I don't think they made a ton of money. And then, they've had some good wins here and there, but Nvidia, bro, like, all they had to do was hold it. The fund is worth $100 billion, and he got it from the Saudis. It's called the Vision Fund. Their Nvidia stake would be worth almost $200 billion if they had just held on to it. Like, it literally would have cemented him, I think, as one of the greatest investors of all time. But even he, he got scared of Nvidia. Now they have a 90% stake in ARM, and he's talked about trying to make trying to make ARM into their next Nvidia. But it's going to be hard to see if that can actually play out the way Nvidia's grown. It's just not as easily. Here's a clip of them talking about this a while ago.
Remember, it was Masa that brought Bill Gates to Japan. It was Masa that invented or brought Jerry Yang to Japan. It was Masa that made possible for China's cloud industry to happen, Alibaba. It was Masa that brought Steve Jobs to Japan and the iPhone. And many of you probably don't know this, but at one point, Masa was the largest shareholder of Nvidia. Oh. It's okay. we can cry together. Remember,
that's got to be wild, right? like freaking Jensen's over here, like, dude, I told you to hold it. It's like you didn't have to sell it, and it's $150 billion mistake. It's tough, dude. This is why investing is ruthless. This is why the Bill Ackmans and the Buffetts get as much as respect as they get, because it is so hard to allocate capital and massively outperform, especially when you're managing lots and lots of money, right? And when these guys are managing tens of billions of dollars, in the case of Buffett, hundreds of billions, it's really tough, dude. Every mistake is costly, and every opportunity cost can be costly if you get out too early or get out too late. So it's a tough job to do, but it's also a job where you could only make $3 billion and be upset, right? So it's not the worst thing in the world for Masa either. Tesla right here at 362, Nvidia 135, Palantir 124, and then Robinhood 6507. S&P, are we flat on the day? S&P is flat, 589. It's actually down below 590. Again, I think everyone is a little bit cautious of the FOMC minutes and Nvidia. And then you got Palantir right here, slightly green, up 1%, 124.75. All right, folks, that is it for me today. I do have a meeting in about 15 minutes that I have to get to, so I'm going to leave a little bit early today. We'll be live at 3:30 p.m. Eastern for the market close. I'll be with Tanner and Jose. It's going to be a big one. Make sure you get your food, your drinks, whatever you need. We're going to be locked in for 3 hours, analyzing this, seeing what we get. And we're going to be hoping for some good numbers from Jensen. We're going to be hoping for some good numbers from Jensen. The reason Tempest is down is because of a short report. That's why Tempest is down. So I know it's down 15%. You either believe in the short report or you don't, but that's why that stock is taking a hit. I am not bringing the Saratoga. I'm not doing that. I'm not letting you guys blame this on me, but it's going to be a big one. It's definitely going to be a big one. All right. Word of the day is Nictate?
Nictate.
To wink. The horse nictated briefly after the fly buzzed near its eye. Owls barely nictate compared to many other birds, so their gaze feels watchful and wise. To wink. Okay. Well. I wonder if Jensen nictated at Trump when he was discussing what would happen with Nvidia earnings a month ago. And maybe that's why Trump opened up the floodgates to the UAE to kind of help our brother out and get some more demand. Dude, if they didn't repeal the diffusion rule, I think this would be a little bit scarier of an earnings, because now at least the street can say, well, the Saudis are buying 5 million chips. But if we didn't have that tailwind and we had the headwind of China leaving, maybe this earnings would be a lot different. So hopefully this is one of those quarters where Nvidia can put up some strong numbers. No one's going to forget that word, nictate. That's a good one. It means something that we all know about, like winking. Like everyone knows what it means to wink. So nictate should be a good euphemism to describe that simple concept. Joby's up 25%. Yeah, Joby got that Toyota investment. So Joby right here, loving it. Joby and Tempest, the biggest movers of the day. Joby right here, 25%. Congrats on Joby. And then Tempest with that short float or short report down 17%. That one getting hit. Nvidia right here, 135. Tessie, 362. Robin at 65.19. And then Palantir, 124.7 on the day. All right, cool. That's it. Why is GameStop falling? Probably because GameStop already ran up before the Bitcoin news. They announced they bought $500 million of Bitcoin today, kind of sell the news. And so that's why Bitcoin's probably taking a bit of a hit currently right now. All right, I'll be back at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, this is one of those streams. It'll be a big one. Jose and Tanner will be with me. We will try to figure out and dissect everything around Nvidia earnings. 3:30, we'll analyze it from 3:30 to 4. And then at 4 p.m., 4:05, we will get the numbers. And for the next 2 hours, we will see what Nvidia does and what the trajectory will be of this market. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.